Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I'm running a little bit late here and getting things in order because my daughter showed up from out of town because it's my son's 9th birthday tomorrow. So I was like all giddy and excited. I forgot and lost track of time, but nonetheless, we made it. We made it. Let's say hello to everyone tonight who is here. J. Christopher King, who is going to be talking about a lot of ET contact tonight. It is going to be absolutely phenomenal, and we're glad to have Jay here. And B is in the gold medal position. Roy Boy in the silver. Smithy with the bronze and kicking off the Super Chat tonight. Thank you so much, Smithy. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to start and support this show, so we very much appreciate it. And what happened there, race fan? Fourth place? Wow. Jurassic Joey, Obi Flett. And let's continue on. Mennonite Abe, John Hinoyosa, Mama Susan is here. She'll be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Continuing on, the gorgeous Cosmic Fleur, Awesome Ann Palmer, Simon Condon, Dirty Filth, Evan Walters. Good to see you all. The gorgeous Kathy Evans. Thank you for coming on in. Joshua S. is here. He'll be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio. To the right of the studio. Desert Rat, nice to see you. Lovely Lisa Compton, thanks for coming on in. Grandpa Holland and Black Dragon, one of our favorite veterans who listens to this show. Thank you so much for tuning us on in as we continue on with roll call. And who is next on the list? Dennis Zuniga, another fantastic veteran who listens to this show. Thank you for your service, Dennis. Holly, how you doing? And Blue Hot Fuzz, welcome to SOR Chat. Kentucky Robert, nice to see you. Matthew Kennedy, the lovely Kathleen Hughes, thank you for coming on in. Engaging the phenomena. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Long time, no time. Nice to have you here. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby, which means we can officially start the show. Worsley, good to have you here. Bobbert, Stunning Samantha, Bill H., lovely Lara, and the Scowling Greg O'Brien, Chris with a dash, Teen, thanks for joining us. The lovely Brandy Phillips, Eva, the gorgeous Sally Elka has returned. Rock the Gaspar, King of Waco Mundo, welcome back. Gong Show, thanks for coming on in. Joe Walsh, please play a little ditty for us if you don't mind in Oklahoma. We'd appreciate that. And we'll continue on with roll call here. George Hernandez, the gorgeous Dirt Road. Let's start the radio side of everything, guys. And Julio, how you doing, man? Gorgeous Aussie Ange, who's in Vegas. Benji, 405er, nice to have you here. And Natalie in the UK looking lovely tonight or early this morning. And Nucker, good to see you. NP, thanks for coming on in. And are we missing anybody here? Are we missing anybody? No, I think we're caught up. We got about 35 seconds before we're going to kick off the show. J. Christopher King is our guest. ETs and disclosure. Can the two coexist? Much like white bread and mayonnaise, or that faux mayonnaise, whatever you prefer to eat. I don't know, but we're going to have some fun with Jay tonight. Super Chat is open. It is a wonderful way to support what we do on Spaced Out Radio here on a nightly basis, so we really do appreciate it. And, of course, you can do some shopping at spacedoutradio.com. We got some great swag there for you. It's going to be a great night. Dirty Filth will be in here momentarily drawing cartoons, and we're going to get into some aliens right now. Do me a favor. Horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Navy the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Sorry about that. My goodness. This is what happens when I rush into the studio. All of a sudden, voice goes. Anyways, we got a great show for you tonight. We're going to talk some aliens, disclosure. J. Christopher King is here. Can the two subjects coincide? Then in hour number 3, we're going to bring you a story from the swamp, courtesy of Swamp Dweller. Tim Senor returns for the UFO report. Shirky Poo has the news. J. Christopher King is one of the founders of the Experiencer Group, which is a private member site dedicated to support, curiosity, and community for people who've had anomalous events of any and all kinds. Along with co-founders Kirsten, Blackburn, and Stuart Davis, Jay speaks with people all over the world about their personal contacted experiences with the extraterrestrial phenomena. He is an experiencer himself. He has been well known and well documented in documentaries as well as newspaper articles, courtesy of Pulitzer Prize winner Ralph Blumenthal. And tonight he's here to discuss a lot about disclosure, a lot about where do the contactees fit in. We've had this topic a number of times where we brought this up, and tonight we're going to get right into it. J. Christopher King, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio again tonight. I apologize about the coughing fit there. I don't know what happened there, but it's good to have you back, my friend.
No, it's great to be here. I'm just glad you're okay. You know, it's important. I know that your daughter's over in the other room, et cetera, but I don't know the relevant emergency contact numbers to call or anything like that. So I'm glad it all worked out.
We do have 911 up here. So if all of a sudden I start choking again on, this is what never gain weight, man. I mean, you're a nice thin guy, good beard, solid hair, never gain weight like me, man, because all of a sudden, you walk like 40 steps and you're like, oh my God, where is that oxygen bag? Where is it? No, I'm teasing, but nonetheless, Jay, last time we had you on this show, it was really about getting into your own personal experiences. But as we have all matured and advanced in this field, I want to get right into it with you because you are much like me, where you're an experiencer, you're a professional, you're someone who looks at a bunch of different sides of the UFO world. How have the last number of months, or let's say the last year, been for you, and how have you noticed you've changed?
Oh, that's a good question, Dave. Well, in the last year, so as you mentioned in the intro, Ralph Blumenthal wrote about me, and it was published in September of last year, September 24th. So the last year for me has been a really wild ride because that article effectively kind of I came out of the experiencer closet, as you'd say, with that article. And so the last year for me has been a wild ride. In June of last year, I was preparing for that article to come out. Ralph had already worked on it. It was already in the editing process. We were 6 months or so into the experiencer group. I'd been doing support meetings with experiencers for about a year and a half at that point. And so I was kind of on the precipice between, for myself anyway, between kind of a being a private researcher, a private source for people and things like that, and about to kind of come out of my shell. And so it was difficult going into like June and July, because that Ralph's article was originally going to be published in the New York Times on Sunday, the 4th of July in the New York Times. And so that had a lot of kind of symbolic weight to it, right? And it got canned. Well, it got pulled, I guess is a better way to say it, about 72 hours before it was supposed to go online. It was in limbo for a while. Tim McMillan eventually picked it up when Ralph was able to take it somewhere else, and it got published. And so it's hard sometimes it feels like it's a little bit hard for me to separate out between, how has the last year been for me and how has it been for the overall community. I try to be able to look at both of those things separately and in parallel, but it can be a little bit challenging sometimes.
It is very challenging as an experiencer because, there's not a lot of people in the UFO world who are really standing up for what the experiencer has gone through. And especially the last number of years, I would say the last 4.5 years, ever since this became a popular topic in the mainstream media, and the To the Stars Academy bringing it out, where it was all about nuts and bolts and propulsion systems and G-forces, where we weren't allowed to talk aliens there for a while. Aliens was a taboo word when it came into this entire fold here. And I know, talking to people such as yourself, Melinda Leslie, and many other very proactive experiencers, that it was a very hard, difficult time to try and get our voices out there, and that, hey, we can't be the forgotten souls of ufology as it was turning out there for a while. What did you think about that whole movement, where for that recent history where experiencers were being really pushed to the side?
Well, I mean, along with that article that I was just talking about, it feels very palpable to me that is still something that's in the air, right? We see prominent people within the field that still don't want to say the A word, whether that A word is aliens or whether that A word is abductions. A lot of people still kind of shy away from that when it comes to the front page of the newspaper, or primetime news television or things like that, right? And so, yeah, it's extraordinarily challenging because, as you and I and many other people in the chat and elsewhere know, this field wouldn't exist if people didn't see something and then say something, right? That's what the whole field is built on. It's what all of kind of paranormal research comes out of, in a way. It's what myth and folk tales come out of, like going back for hundreds, if not thousands of years. The fact that somebody had an odd experience, had a really challenging situation with something that wasn't supposed to happen according to, the rules of the land or whatever, and then had got themselves together enough to be able to say something. So, it's difficult even within the field that there are some gatekeepers, there are some, people that think of themselves almost as like ideological soccer goalies, right? That want to keep the conversation on maybe some declassified document, or keep the conversation on some view of some craft that they might be able to see through a telescope that might be 5 miles away or something like that. They want to keep the issue 5 miles away through a telescope. They don't want it to
Right.
be something that is occurring in it, in interpersonal space, right? And I see that changing. I see that shifting in public discourse. And what's a little bit sad to me is that it seems that within the field, I see almost more resistance sometimes than I do from the regular public at large.
Why do you think there is such a distaste for the word aliens, or even getting into the abduction subject? It doesn't matter whether it's journalists, whether it's government officials who are still at congressional hearings talking about swamp gas. We want to be keeping away from that word aliens or extraterrestrials. I mean, is it a fear? Is it a stigma that all of a sudden, if they say aliens, that they're all of a sudden going to, be like imperial margarine, where a crown of tinfoil is going to appear on their head? I mean, what is it, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, on one level, I understand the semantic problem of aliens and extraterrestrials, where it's like, okay, what if they turn out to be inner earthers or something like that, right? What if they turn out to be interdimensionals? There's that kind of getting into the weeds of the situation where I can understand why somebody might say, like, oh, I'd prefer to call them others. I'd prefer them to call them this, that, or the other thing. I get that. But then on the other side of things, do when it's been 4.5 years since Ralph and Leslie and Helene Cooper's front page article in the New York Times that exposed ATIP and had those famous UFO cockpit videos that we've all seen 100 million times, the fact that it's been such a delicate dance where where people don't typically have any kind of conjecture about whether these are drone craft or whether there's an occupant, right? Or more than one occupant. And it's funny because there's so many cycles within ufology and within the public discourse where it just goes back. People were like, I don't know about aliens. Let's use the term occupant. People were having that conversation 52 years ago, back in like 1970, right? And here we are, and we're practically like at ground -3, like before that. You know what I mean? We're almost at a more reductive point now in the public conversation than we were then, if you were to actually look at the history of the field, right?
Right, right. And I get that. But, what I see is a lot of hints have been made over the last year or so. We've heard Bill Nelson from NASA talk extraterrestrials. We've heard
Mm-hmm.
Luis Elizondo, Chris Mellon mention the E word.
Yes.
Others within the Pentagon have mentioned it. The word is out there. It's not like it's taboo anymore. Yet we still see a lot of conjecture around it, a lot of fear. Like, hey, you can't be talking aliens, man. That's too woo for us. But in reality, at some point, even the trusted skeptics and real negative Nancy's about this field have to understand that at one point it was Travis Walton's Fire in the Sky or Close Encounters of the Third Kind that led them to this.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And, and it's an even richer ecosystem than that, as you well know, with the various forms of cryptids and other paranormal behavior that you put on your show, right? So we know from aspects like even just the other day with the released IG report from Lou Elizondo, we know about more details about the OSAP program that was looking into an even richer version of the paranormal years past. And so we know that you and I and the audience, many people in the audience here, know that people like the DIA and others have been looking into not just the E word, not just the extraterrestrial word, but how does this manifest in a richer world that also involves orbs or cryptids or strange voices that somebody might hear at Skinwalker Ranch, things like that, right? And so, I think I'm looking forward to the possibility of more of these congressional hearings, and because like hopefully that might push the ball forward in terms. I get a little skeptical when it comes to situations like this, when it's like, okay, like how far are these guys going to go? But then, last time around, talking about, the Robert Salas Malmstrom case, that was
Right.
pretty interesting to see how go there. You know what I mean? There are aspects of that conversation that went into a good direction. So I'm optimistic about the days ahead, and I think we realize that there's that one of the thing that needs to be admitted here is that it's not just ETs, it's not just aliens, it's all of that. It's that it seems like we're kind of sitting in a rich ecosystem that we just can't quite see most of the time.
I like the way you put that, a rich ecosystem, because the one thing that I have really noticed about this entire field, and I've said it to Dr. Bob McGuire a number of times on this show and other people, even Lou and Sean Cahill who've been on this show. I've said to them point blank that at some point we have to bridge that gap between experiencer and the disclosure side of this movement. And the reason why we have to do that is because I'm a firm believer, and I'm curious your opinion on this, that a lot of what we see going on with ETs, our science is not capable of understanding. Now, I'm not a scientist, don't get me wrong. I know nothing about science. That's why I'm a journalist. That's why I do a radio show. But I really do believe that many experiencers out there have a lot more answers that science needs in order to help solve this riddle, this puzzle. And I'm curious where you stand on that.
Oh, absolutely. 100% agreed. I mean, I think, if all you need to do is talk to, I mean, if you hear from more experiencers, you get more data points, right? And so, there's an element of empathy and compassion and understanding and humanity that are inherent in these kinds of conversations, where we would hope that people would look at the situation with experiencers and understand, oh, these people have had a problematic situation. They didn't feel like they could talk about this stuff for many years. Many people have died with these secrets. Relationships have been torn apart, all that other kind of stuff. And then on top of that, there, if you want to look at it from just a clear data perspective, the experiencers have the data. You can ask any experiencer and get to the weird details, get to those strange details. Like, was the being like actually walking on the ground, or was it floating? You know what I mean? Why was it floating? Did you see any like weird field effects around it? Did you see like a haze? Did you see? And there's so many aspects of those details that can kind of trace people back, and have traced people back to potentially stumbling into scientific discoveries. For example, Kit Green's recently released paper that DIRD, the DIRD, that was funded by the OSAP program, that covered biological effects of experiencers. Now, what were they doing there? They were seeing that people were suffering radioactive damage when they got too close to crafts and things like that. And then what did they do with that information? They were trying to figure out how they could use that to reverse engineer the propulsion systems of the crafts themselves, right? Now, that's
Right.
a pretty, in through the back door way to go about doing that. And, in a way, it's a little bit ghastly, right? Because you're looking at basically somebody's, like skin damage and things like that, and then trying to figure out like a propulsion mechanism based off of that. But the weird thing is it works. And so that's just like one, like, kind of unfortunate but tangible example about how the experiencers actually hold the keys and the ticket to finding out more about what's actually happening here.
Hey, Christopher King is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got about 3.5 minutes left before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. And Jay, the idea that this subject is still so taboo, and yet it is going to play an important part moving this field forward. How far away are we, do you think, from seeing results where experiencers and the scientific community start to come together? Or is it starting and it's just not publicized?
I think it's very much started and it's just not publicized. I mean, there are so many skeptics. There could even be some maybe in the chat here where it's like, well, where's the video? And then we all know that there's more video that's just classified, right? And like we hear about this stuff all the time. It's just sitting on JWICs. Like if you have access to the classified version of the internet that most government employees do, you could queue up many of these videos like at the drop of a hat. You know what I mean? Like they're just sitting there. And so, there are aspects to this, the version of like when is science and experiencers going to come together? Like people like Kit Green, if you look in the footnotes of those DIRDs, those OSAP released DIRDs, you'll see that people like Kit Green have been studying experiencers since the late 70s. So when it comes down to it, there are many people within the scientific community. Kit Green is one of them. Gary Nolan's another one. They've both kind of come out more. And there are other people like that have been literally, sitting in funded studies to trace experiencers and the biological effects of experiencers, listening to their accounts, getting debriefed on these things. This has been something that's been happening for decades. And the fact that it does burn me up. It does frustrate me, and it should frustrate people that this hasn't been more publicized and it hasn't been more public facing. But it will be in the days and weeks to come. I'm absolutely convinced of that, given the assurances that people are starting to get behind the scenes in terms of being able to talk about some of these programs.
Are you talking behind the scenes with people?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it depends. I mean, it depends on who we're talking about, but sure, I mean, even you and I sometimes are privy to certain, group chats and things like that, where people compare notes and pass things along every once in a while. It's not uncommon in the scene that we run in.
I understand that, but have you been approached personally by any government officials about talking about the experiential side?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you're talking about, because if it would be in an official capacity, I don't think so. You know what I mean? Have I talked to people that, I think if you've spent more than a year and a half in the field, you've talked to somebody in the IC at some point. You know what I mean?
Very true.
Yeah.
Jay, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. It seems like my voice is starting to finally come back, and I'm thankful for that, because otherwise it would be a long night. Jay Christopher King, he's an experiencer. He is someone who has gone very public with what he's gone through, and he is following closely disclosure and the experience together. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Stay tuned. All right, we're clear.
All right.
We is clear. Oh, God, I don't know what hit my voice there, but son of a gun, I apologize about that, man.
No, I was wondering, because I remember from the last couple of times that we've hung out that you're pretty good about getting in the chair early, and this is the first time that I saw you like slide into home base, right as when the clock hit 0. You know what I mean? That was pretty awesome.
My oldest daughter hasn't been here for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, because of COVID, And so we were upstairs. She got here about about an hour ago now. And we still hadn't done Christmas with her yet. So all of her Christmas presents were sitting up here. And she's like, because tomorrow's my boy's birthday, her brother's birthday. And she wanted to, we're like, well, we'll just do the presents tomorrow. And she's like, no, that's the boy's birthday. It's about him. Can we do them tonight? So, I mean, So that's where it kind of got a little caught up. So I apologize. And, we were laughing and cheering and all that kind of stuff the family does. And I don't do well when I have to race. I need to be able to focus and prep my voice, and I didn't get to do that.
But I don't apologize for hanging out with your family, especially for the first time in so long. That's amazing. I'm glad you're able to do that tonight. That's awesome.
Vicks, not anything illegal.
Hey man, I'm in a no judging zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm an open-minded guy.
Well, there's Mr. Cowley. You want to sing with me? Mr. Cowley. Dun, dun. Welcome back to the show. Oh, Mr. Cowley.
Was there?
Loves his radio.
I know that Ozzy Osbourne had some surgery. I saw it in my feed. I don't know if it landed anywhere. He was supposed to have his. I think he had major back surgery. I don't know. I hope he's doing okay. If anybody out there,
he's gonna live forever. He's gonna live forever.
Oh yeah,
he's totally live forever. Him and Keith Richards are gonna be around 300 years from now.
Yeah. I actually, one of my first concerts ever. My first concert ever was the Beach Boys. My second concert ever was Ozzy Osbourne, Sepultura, and Alice in Chains. And that, my friend. Thanks. And that, my friend, was called the No More Tours Tour, right?
I remember that.
And so you remember that the No More Tours Tour was 29 fucking years ago, or freaking years ago. Sorry.
You can swear right now.
Yeah. I figured I thought we were between segments here. But that was 29 freaking years ago, right? So or about that. So that guy, I think that he probably has a better understanding of his immortality than he did then. I hope he does anyway.
My first concert was in 1989. It was Skid Row opening for Aerosmith.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. That was on the was it the Pump tour?
That was a good record. I loved that record when I was a kid. I thought it was awesome. I didn't get half of the sexual references, of course, on that record when I heard it, but I just liked the tunes quite a lot. I thought they were awesome.
And I was there to see Skid Row. I was a big Skid Row fan at 89.
Yeah. See, I wasn't much of a Skid Row fan, but the people 1 year ahead of me in middle school certainly were. I did end up seeing Aerosmith. I think it was February or March maybe of 94 in Lexington, Kentucky at Rupp Arena. And boy, that was a good show. There were just silk scarves everywhere on that stage.
I know. Steven Tyler, I saw them again, and he kept on losing his voice. They had performed the night before in Seattle, and he kept on losing his voice, and it was very disappointing. Very disappointing. But nonetheless, we got about 45 seconds here. Big thank you to Dennis and Smithy for the super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways, and don't forget after the show to leave a comment. We really appreciate it. It helps build our algorithms on a nightly basis. So if you haven't given a thumbs yet, please do so. We'd appreciate it. And if you're new tuning on in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. We also have great Spaced Out Radio swag for sale on our website. And here we go, everyone. Let's start this next half hour right now. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you tuning us on in. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. From the Experiencers Group, J. Christopher King is here. Experiences with extraterrestrials and disclosure, the topic du jour. And Jay, I want to get into this with you right now because I think part of the problem that we have as experiencers is the fact that 99.99998% of our experience is anecdotal evidence. And this really seems to piss the skeptics off and the non-believers and those who want to believe but just don't understand how something so science fiction could happen to a human being. And that includes those in government. I think the people in ATIP are a little bit smarter than that, to be honest. And I think they kind of know a little bit more about what is truly going on. But how does an experiencer win when all you have is anecdotal evidence to present?
Well, along those lines, Dave, I mean, I think one thing that's interesting is that so much, when you're talking about 99% of experience or something like that, you know, so much of our time is spent in consensus reality as well. You know what I mean? It can be those tiny little moments that really just shift the whole course of your life, right? And so for a seasoned experiencer that has had a rich group of situations occur, they could all add up, you know, in at least in the conscious memory, it could all add up to an hour, you know what I mean, of somebody's life. And that could have been, you know, 30 situations where there was just like one little blip over here. Or, you know, my friend Stuart Davis, for example, that I co-founded the Experiencer Group with, he had one situation where he had 1 minute with a mantis being in front of him, right? And it completely, you know, shattered his worldview, changed the course of his life. And, you know, that was 60 seconds, right? Or about that, right? And, you know, there were a couple other UAP situations with him, and definitely a richer tapestry that went moving forward, but it was that 1 minute. And so, you know, I think when you ask, how does an experiencer win in a situation where it's so anecdotal and etc., I think that the experiencer wins by taking the time necessary to kind of move inward and process their experience, and really, really work on, what does this mean for the world around me? And what does this mean for my world? Or what does it mean for my mind? How I communicate with other beings, how I conceptualize thought with other beings. You know, there are so many richer questions. And at a certain point, I think that a lot of the more well-functioning experiencers that I know really kind of start to get into those big questions and get into a zone where they can entertain the ontology and the philosophy and kind of just those big fun thoughts to think about, and get a little bit less hung up on being able to prove it to everybody. Because in some ways, you know, I don't feel it's my job to prove it to everybody. Like, I don't care about proving. If you know, if 90% of the people that listen to this podcast don't believe that I had any experiences or anything like that, that's absolutely okay. That's fine with me, because, you know, F them. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not going to matter to me. What I care about is the inner life and of the other experiencers out there. And so at a certain point, I can just kind of shut off that part of the conversation myself. And, you know, I would maybe encourage some others to do that as well, you know, when it comes to skepticism, things like that.
Well, the big thing is, like, I know for myself when I get taken. I got taken 2 weeks ago. Okay, I know exactly what happened. I know who was there. You know, it's funny because how I really know the difference between a dream and actually being taken is how I feel the next morning. If I'm feeling hungover, because I do not drink, if I'm feeling hungover, if certain points of my body are sore, like for instance my neck or my joints around my knees or my wrists or my elbows, I know that something took place. They're little triggers for me. And I think a lot of people in my situation have these triggers where they know the difference between what they think is a dream and what is actually happening. Like, for instance, when I feel that gravitational pull pulling at my body, I know that this is no longer a dream anymore. This is something that's becoming very, very real. To try and explain that to someone who is skeptical or nuts and bolts or more on the scientific side, they don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't have a feeling. They can't conceptualize. So, where is that gap? Or, first off, let me ask you, besides the gap, what are your triggers that you know the difference of where if you've been taken or not? And number two, how do we fill that gap?
Yeah. I was just talking about this the other day with James, who is in the chat, and James Yandoli from Engaging the Phenomenon. Great guy. Love that guy.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And he's in this post-pandemic time that we're in right now. He's become one of my favorite IRL, in real life, friends to hang out with, because we both live in the New York City area. But we were talking about this the other day, and he was asking me about pivotal experiences, and I was reminded of a time when I was in my 20s and I was living in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, and I had had a really challenging series of experiences. For those that don't know, often for abduction experiencers, or people of many different modalities within this realm, the 20s are kind of a peak a peak era for a lot of people. They, for whatever reason. And so I had a situation one night, and I'd been having a lot of situations where I'd get picked up in the middle of the night. And in fact, my recently ex-girlfriend had seen the beginnings of one of these situations, and it was not good. I had not told her about any of this kind of stuff. She really freaked out. It was totally understandable. There were a couple other situations before that where friends kind of stopped hanging out with me because they were around when something odd was happening, and they knew that if they stopped hanging out with me, they could stop hanging out with the weirdness. So I was already kind of traumatized, not just by the experience, but by the aspect of feeling more alienated, no pun intended, by the people the people around me, wondering if I was ever going to be able to have another relationship, or wondering if how close I was ever going to be able to get with anybody. And one night I'm sitting there, and I get kind of a very woozy feeling. I hear this kind of big hum, but I was already in kind of a 3/4 asleep zone, right? Where I wondered, am I dreaming, or am I really awake right now? And then I had the feel like I sensed a bunch of cold air rush into the room. It was wintertime, and it felt as if like a whole section of wall had gotten dematerialized. And then I felt like the pull from my chest, and I was kind of getting levitated towards another room. It was kind of an open floor plan apartment. And so and then I'm kind of grabbing at stuff, basically just to kind of protest. I'm awake enough to be able to do that, which is amazing. And I'm just kind of grabbing at doorways, and then there's a macrame plant hanger between two rooms, and I grab one of the ropes of that macrame plant hanger, and I'm trying to pull on it, and then I blacked out. I couldn't remember what happened. I woke up in my bed. I woke up with a headache, the typical kind of headache, and I was like, okay, but did that really happen? Because it felt in that woozy state. It wasn't like I was walking home and something happened. It wasn't like I was driving or somebody was there with me. And so I was at a stage of the game where things were happening so frequently that I wanted it to be a dream. I wanted it to merely reflect other situations that had happened. And like, I liked being able to throw stuff into the recycling bin because enough stuff was happening with people around or in situations where it was undeniable. So I kind of liked the idea of throwing this one in the gray basket. You know what I mean? Then I walked out and towards my kitchen, and I saw that the macrame, the plant and the macrame holder and stuff, it was just a mess. There was soil all over the floor. The plant was screwed up, et cetera, et cetera. And so, then I sat there and I knew, like, oh, it actually happened. You know what I mean? And it was it was a really challenging, shocking, and frustrating situation to just have to sit there and go like, okay, like I need to confront this. I need to deal with this. I need to look at this in the face. And like, I can't just keep conveniently acting like some of these situations are dreams. And, I mean, experiencers often have disturbing dreams as well. But I think to your point that, there's a situation where we want to determine what's a dream or not. And then sometimes I think that the part of our brains also want to classify things as dreams because it gets too overwhelming, right? And so what are the triggers? The triggers are, sometimes I've gone through periods where I've deadbolted the doors or like put little marks around the doors to try to have some kind of semblance of understanding there. That gets defeated pretty easily because there's this whole situation of basically getting kind of warped through like solid surfaces, which is a hard thing to believe. But there are contemporary theories of things like quantum tunneling that would seem to be able to explain how that might be possible, to kind of zero in on somebody and move them through a solid surface. So the ways that I could tell, I'm not sure that they're even possible. You know what I mean? Like it's easier when somebody else is around, and then after that, I feel like for me anyway, the biggest problem had been historically wanting it to be a dream rather than wanting to categorize it as real.
The last time you were taken, how long ago was it and what happened?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, in terms of my conscious recall, I'm not sure, There have been situations in the last 5 years that certainly seemed like that, The last time that I remember a physical being in front of me in a waking state was about 4 years ago. Now, but have there been times where I've woken up and had headaches and like strange marks on my body and things like that since then? Absolutely. Right. And so that I've only gotten hypnotically regressed twice. Only one of those times was actually about an abduction encounter. And so I've kind of made a conscious decision for a while to just kind of work with what my conscious recall is. And so there's definitely a lot more work that I could do that way, but I wanted to kind of stay in the level of conscious recall, not because I think that hypnosis is not pertinent or that couldn't be helpful in a lot of different ways, but I think that it's important for me sometimes to embody in a very conscientious way the states that other experiencers manifest and want to be in, if that makes sense.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I know mine was about 2 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I know the person who I was with, and we were having a conversation on a driveway, a single car driveway, on a house I didn't recognize at night. And then all of a sudden, I heard the bushes rustling to the right of us. And I turn and look, and there is an alien gray halfway up, poking through the bushes, except instead of the almond green eyes or almond black eyes, it had bright green eyes, luminescent, like the green we have on our screens here. And that's when I was shown 3 pictures of black triangles. One in the dusk with its lights on, one at night with the 3 corners lit, and one in the daytime, except it was silver, like chrome or steel or whatever you want. And that's when all of a sudden me and the other person got the gravitational pull. And I was like, oh God, I don't want to go. Don't want to go. I got home at 1 o'clock in the morning from looking out, hanging out at my Sasquatch gifting site way out in the forest. I woke up at 2:55 after this experience. And I was wide awake. And my head was pounding. And that's how I knew. So the fact that we have those situations going on a daily basis, I think a lot of people, Jay, have to realize this is happening every day to different people. Every day. It's a lot more common occurrence than what we can even imagine, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's an incredibly common occurrence, and it's when you add up situations of missing time like that, and then on top of that, how many people experience what they think of as spirits just in passing in their homes, things like that. When you think about the compounding amount of anomalous experience that people in different kinds of modalities that people have going on, it becomes absolutely overwhelming that you have to imagine that there are millions of occurrences probably happening like this every day, given 8 billion people in the world. How many people how many people for whatever reason are the types of experiencers that it seems like their filters are just gone and they see things almost daily. And then there are other people that are more incidental, right? And I'm just glad that we're in a position where we can have these kinds of conversations, and they don't have to be so charged. Like I can feel more casual about referencing some of these situations than I did a year ago, or even a few months ago. How does it feel to you to be able to talk this stuff out? That, something can happen like that 2 weeks ago and you can actually talk about it.
I made a commitment to myself that if I was doing this show, that I would share those experiences with the audience. I didn't have any choice. I couldn't be hypocritical about it. And look, I've been called a liar. I've been called somebody who says he's doing it for ratings and he's doing it for whatever. But you know what? If I could have my happily boring life back, where I have every evening to myself, and instead of doing a radio show about these topics, I would take my happily boring life back. But because this is happening to me, I feel there's a sense of commitment to helping others and being a strong voice within the community. But the difference between you and myself is I'm more of an emotional reactor, whereas I really like the fact that, and maybe you're just, every time I've talked to you, you seem so calm, cool, collected, and very well spoken and well thought out about what you're saying. Whereas I'm kind of like, screw that. Let's just get to it. Let's start admitting we got some aliens here, and let's start kicking ass and taking names. Right? How do you keep so calm and cool around this subject? What grounds you?
Meditation, like like exercise, like diet, sleep. I've had to grow into being extraordinarily careful about how I structure my day so that I don't I don't lose my sanity. Let's say I was going to use another S word, but we're on the air. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I was going to lose, like I've had to be very careful over the years not to lose my S. Fill in the blank there, and I thought, and there were times where I almost did. You know what I mean? There are times in my mid to late 20s where I came really close to not just being untethered, but just finding myself in really unsafe situations, not within the experience, but within how I was processing things. You know what I mean? And so in terms of not wanting to go to sleep, I would stay out all night. I would stay up all night. I would so much sleeplessness, so much hypervigilance, which is a term that's used for when people feel like they have to lock all the doors. They have to be like hyper aware and just like ready for a fight like all night long. There are so many experiencers that have situations like that have, that they start collecting weapons, or they start collecting security cameras, or they just have that palpable sense of anxiety for hours on end. And even just things like that are extraordinarily, like, think of, I'm sure that you're aware of this, Dave, like how much that compounds over years, and how that wears down the amount that people are able to be productive during the day, or able to kind of be present to their loved ones. Maybe, there are all sorts of situations where just even that hypervigilance, because 9 times out of 10, like, they don't come at night. You know what I mean? 9 times out of 10, it's just that feeling of getting worked up, and not feeling like you can go to sleep until dawn or something like that. There are so many people like that. So what did I do? I started researching things the way that I could, which was to try to do it in kind of an untriggered way. So that meant that I started looking at like remote viewing texts and things like that. I started looking at like Mind Reach by Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ. I started thinking about the ways that I could explore the phenomenon that was somewhat tethered to science, or somewhat tethered to my lived experience, but that didn't have the charge of kind of being held against one's will, if that made sense. Like, I couldn't do that for years. And so I was trying to kind of come at it from the back door, and then eventually try to work in a daily meditation practice, and really try to, like, I bought a bunch of plants. I started like going on long walks in the park. I mean, I have to do stuff like this still, like, pretty much every day. And, now it's to the point of habit where I love it. You know what I mean? Like, I love going to the park every day. But at first it was just a survival mechanism. And so I think that's it. In a long form answer to your question, I think that's how I'm able to stay grounded, for sure.
Well, in hour number 2, we will take some audience questions from our chat room in YouTube, along with maybe on Twitter as well tonight at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. J. Christopher K. We're talking about experiencers and disclosure. How can the two mesh? Can they coincide? Can they work together? We'll find out when we go deep into this conversation in hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. We will be back right after this on the mighty SOR. All right, we're clear.
All right.
We got about 6 minutes here, bud. So I'm just going to put Dirty Filth up here, and I'll be right back, okay? I'm going to take a quick bathroom break here.
Sure.
All right. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Always likes her name said 3 times. It's weird. I'll be right back, Jay. I'm just going to put it
Right on.
Hi, Sandra, times 3 times as well. Ooh, somebody's going to get this card in Vegas next year. It's all the planets in the solar system. And I'm including Pluto, because Pluto's a planet. If any of those nerds want to come fight about it, I'll fight them. Hello, Blob. The Blob has arrived, everybody. Oh, boy. Figure it out, Blob. Oh, what a mess. So I did the Man in Black, Nessie. I got a couple other ones. I got to do about 9 million cards for Vegas next year. Because I also need a stack to just throw into people's pockets when they're not looking. Actually, I get a special color for this planet. That was the minty color. There we go. Ooh, and then Neptune, my favorite planet. Favorite planet. And my favorite dinosaurs are the Deinonychus and Archaeopteryx. Probably said them both wrong, but that's okay. Then we have to make sure we color in Pluto at the very bottom, because Pluto's a planet. Let that sucker dry for a second here and go on to the next one. Ugh. Left the window open, a whole bunch of pollen got in here, so everything's covered in all this sludge. Yes, Kira got the alien card. She originally had drawn the lizard, but she didn't want it, and she made a request to switch. And she drew the alien. It worked out pretty good. This drawing is going to be of the I don't know if I'm saying this correctly because I don't live in North Carolina, but Pamlico? I'm not sure. Apparently some kid took a picture of this alien. It was like 3 feet tall, and he was in some kind of egg-shaped craft. And so this is what I drew from the picture. I drew from the picture. It was kind of weird looking. It looked like a little spaceman, really. But apparently it's been debunked. And as far as the debunking people say, it was just a toy soldier or something he dressed up, or I don't know. Nobody gets famous off this stuff. If you take a weird picture, people are like, nope, it's fake. Like, why would I fake it?
Way to go, dirty filth.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Well,
You're
that's
welcome.
just it. Why would you fake it? Is anybody rich? How many UFO guys live in mansions sipping strawberry daiquiris every day?
Probably more than we think.
Oh,
Probably more than we think.
Well, all the like TV guys aside, right? But
Well, you got a face for TV. You got a melon for TV. I mean, it takes up 3/4 of the screen, but that's okay.
I can use my head as one of those shiny reflector things so that you can get a good picture, but that's about it. Yeah, this is the Pamlico Visitor.
All right, we got 21 seconds left. Thank you so much to Amy, YJ, Laura, Dennis, and Smithy for the amazing super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. We want to say that you can do your shopping at spacedoutradio.com. We got great UFO swag there. And here we go, everyone, with hour number 2.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Kicking off hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Cardionost. Cardionost is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, checking out Shirky Poo's Newswire. You can shop for some swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. From the Experiencer Group, J. Christopher King is here. We are talking experiencers and disclosure tonight. It's a heavy topic because for so long, the disclosure movement really hasn't been about the experiencers. It's been about technology. It's been about threat narratives. It's been about absolutely everything than the people who've had first-hand accounts. And we're going to get right into this here momentarily. Jay, welcome back to the show.
Great to be here, Dave. Thanks for having me.
I want to ask you, do you ever see a day in the future when further congressional hearings happen where experiencers are actually called into Congress to say what has happened to them?
Well, I mean, one aspect, yes. B, it partially depends on how we define those terms, but I think up on Friday, just here in a few hours, really, in the Brazilian Senate, Robert Salles is going to testify in person, and Lou Elizondo is going to make a video teleconference presentation to the Brazilian Senate for their first UAP hearing, and along those lines, Robert Salles will be testifying presumably about the Maelstrom 1967 incident in which he was overseeing a nuclear facility and saw at least supposedly 10 nuclear missiles get shut down when there was a UAP above the site. And Lou Elizondo, people have often asked him whether he's an experiencer or not, and he often tries to evade the question. However, as we all know, in the Skinwalkers at the Pentagon book, there's a passing reference to Lou Elizondo using his abilities of remote viewing to evade dangerous situations in the battlefield, right? And so when we think about in the future, anomalous experiencers testifying in front of Congress, we only have to look 48 hours out from now.
Do you think, or let me rephrase that, how would the entire landscape of experiencers change if Lou Elizondo publicly admitted he was an experiencer?
I mean, I think that will happen. I think that, he has this book deal. He's writing a book right now. I wouldn't doubt that there might be something in there along those lines. I would be, I cross my fingers. I don't, by the way, I don't feel like we need every egg in the basket to be with Lou Elizondo. I've talked with Lou, and I enjoy talking with Lou. But this is much. This field is way, way, way bigger than Lou Elizondo. That said, I think that if he at a certain point in the conversation opened up more about his own experiences, I think that could be a helpful thing. You know what I mean? Given how much access he has in news media and in other forms of the conversation. Unfortunately, there are people within ufology and within the field that will likely try to use that to tear him down, as they do other experiencers. But I don't really, those people, I don't know that we really need to pay attention to those folks. I mentioned them a little bit here, in terms of kind of setting up what's the dynamic that we're speaking about. But there, as you and I both know, there are a significant amount of people within the field that participate in the online discourse that are not coming to the conversation in an authentic way. So there's going to be an element where if he comes out as an experiencer, there are certain people that are well known in our community that are going to use that to tear him down more than they already have. And, we're just going to have to choose not to listen to those people, and I think that it would be humanizing in a lot of ways to hear from Lou about his own experience, as it is for anybody. You know what I mean? As it is for anybody.
And I agree with you, but there are so many people who've been doing this for decades. Whether it's Richard Dolan, whether it's Melinda Leslie, whether it's Grant Cameron, who has really been a champion of experiencers. There are a number of people out there who have been doing this for decades that we tend to forget are part of this conversation, with their interviewing and their knowledge and reports and evidence that they've got from experiencers themselves. At some point, there's got to be somebody, whether it's Tim Burchett or any other American politician, who has to open up their eyes and take that gamble to see what is truly going on outside of the nuts and bolts. Do you see that happening within the next couple of years?
I do more. And I think that part of that I foresee is that I think, from what I hear, there's a strong likelihood that, for example, Lou himself, that people like Jay Stratton, who was a person that was involved with OSAP and ATIP and the UAP task force. I think that Jay Stratton's going to get called to testify at a certain point. I think Lou will as well. I think that there's a strong likelihood. Eric Davis has already testified behind closed doors on Capitol Hill. And so will he speak publicly about that? But, Eric Davis has already told the New York Times straight up, Ralph and Leslie, that he briefed behind closed doors about crash retrievals, right? That was published in the Times like over a year ago. So I think the situation of whether the kind of expanded sense of the paranormal, I think, will come into play, because if people are being honest about what happened with OSAP and what happened with how much time and study got put into places like Skinwalker Ranch, then that richer ecosystem that we were talking about earlier is going to come into play. And whether that's Tim Burchett or whoever, I think that all you have to do is slip on one banana peel and you get into those bigger questions than just what's in the sky around David Fravor on that one day in 2004 or whatever.
Before we get to some audience questions, I want to ask you about some studies that are going on. We know that Gary Nolan at Stanford University is looking into the effects of experiencers. We know that Rice University has a team that is doing research on experiences. What do you expect to come out of Rice University and potentially their archives of the impossible?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was down there for the recent opening of the Archives of the Impossible conference, and that was in March, and that was amazing. There's about 100 people. For those that don't know, Jeff Kripal is a really significant figure in the field. He's kind of quiet in terms of, he just does what he does within academia, and every once in a while he'll do an interview or something like that. He's a wonderful writer. But he doesn't necessarily function as like a talking head as much as some people do. But he runs what's called the GEM program in the humanities department at Rice University. And he contends, he's also the assistant dean of humanities at Rice, which is a very, very significant and well-funded university. So he contends that the anomalous should be studied just as much, if not more, within the humanities as it is through the straight sciences, because there people can talk about the philosophical or spiritual underpinnings of some of this stuff, and how some of this stuff may have been classified as spiritual or religious experience in the past, but may be part of the kind of richer world of the anomalous. It also would encompass things like anthropology and accounts that may have been, collected through anthropological work. There's so many situations where the humanities would be important. Anyway, so he's got this great doctoral program called the GEM program, where there are doctoral students, walking in and out of Rice campus every day, that are working on these things. And the Archives of the Impossible, he was able to secure money. So they've got right now part of Whitley Strieber's archive there, and specifically a bunch of letters that he got from abductees and other experiencers, what Whitley called the communion letters, that came into him in the 80s and through the mid 90s or so, of people, back in the Wild West days of the internet, when most people didn't even have the internet, and their only tether in many cases to the abduction phenomenon was the book Communion, right? And so many of those letters have already gone to the Archives of the Impossible. Jacques Vallée's archive is sitting there at Rice, and in fact, I know two guys, Tim Grieve Carlson and Learned Foot, that actually are two of the only people on Earth that have been able to see Jacques Vallée's archives up to this point, because they actually sat there and went through and organized the whole darn thing, right? The rest of the public won't see those for 6 or 7 years. There's a bunch of other stuff there. The spirit medium Stuart Alexander, Leslie Kane works with him, and a lot of people don't know that, and was able to secure his archive, the files of NARCAP, which has been a ufology organization. There are many records that are collecting there at Rice, so that researchers now and in the future will be able to study this important work, right? And so, I think in the days ahead, it's going to be amazing, because at that Rice conference, Jacques was there, Leslie was there, Diana Pasulka was there, so many notable people were there, and I was actually asked to speak there, and it was the first time that I've ever spoken at an academic conference, and it was incredible. I mean, the fact that, and Whitley Strieber gave one of the main presentations at the lecture, and people weren't blinking an eye. Nobody was batting an eyelash about abduction talk there. Not, there was no stigma whatsoever in the room. And it was being live cast out to thousands of people. And there were a bunch of notable people from places like Harvard and other major universities sitting there. And I didn't have a whiff of any kind of negative, stigma in the conversation there at all. It was incredible. And, right after that, I saw the first kind of fruits in that this new peer-reviewed UAP academic journal called Limina. It was announced, and Jeff Kripal is on the advisory board for that, as is Stephen Finley, who spoke at that conference as well, and some others. And so seeing that there are really concrete examples of the conversation moving forward in a public-facing way, so that other academics will be able to be inspired and take the work of others and be able to apply it to their own work. I think that's where the real future of this field lies, in academic and scientific endeavors by academic institutions and private individuals and venture capitalists, even, rather than waiting for some crumb of truth from an organization that is basically based around the idea of keeping things secret if they can be exploited.
What is the purpose of this study on experiencers? What is Rice University trying to find out?
I think Jeff and others there are trying to find what is the range of experience, what overlaps and what's discrete, and whether there can be, using the historical record and using contemporary reports and things like this, part of it is whether there can be a better map of what exists here. Because maybe if we can't get the map, or we can't get kind of like the phone book of all of these beings through radar returns, maybe we can get more of it through looking at anthropology, looking at contemporary cases, looking at the history in certain areas, looking even at folklore and myth, and finding what's there. Because, there are a lot of interesting paranormal accounts that have been recorded under the auspices of myth and folktales that really resonate. And when you look at them through the prism of the anomalous, as people like Jacques Vallée and Evans Wentz and other people like that have done.
So do you think that, and maybe I'm very green on this, so please forgive me, but in this study that Rice University is doing, are they trying to find out the cause and effects of alien abduction? Are they trying to find out the knowledge that has been given? So people who claim to have had downloads or flown the ship?
Oh, I mean, there was definitely talk about downloads there for sure. I mean, that's one of Diana Pasulka's favorite things to talk about, as far as I know, is to talk about situations like downloads. I think that there's a lot there. I mean, I don't think that there's any one particular aim through the Rice University GEM program. I think that it's more about producing waves, not just any particular one study, but producing waves of people that are pursuing their own dissertation, so pursuing their own study that's overseen, but their own study that pertains to this. And so it becomes this body that has kind of appendages going out in a bunch of different directions in a lot of ways. And I think that that's one of the most exciting things about it, that Jeff's program has figured out a way to basically multiply itself so that, just the other day, he had some graduates and they've already moved on to I know of one that moved on to his own academic position, this summer. And so, it's like his program and programs like that are going to start kind of infecting other academic institutions and start and kind of create a grassroots wave of possibilities for these kinds of conversations to develop on campuses all over the world.
At some point, when we look at the idea of having true and potentially peer-reviewed study on ET experiencers, what do you hope we find out of this, as we got about 3 minutes to go?
Oh gosh, and okay, in 3 minutes, I hope that we find all the answers that ever exist. No, I think that one thing that would be great to see in the hearings themselves would be an acknowledgement that anomalous phenomena doesn't just exist in the skies. I think that would be a great thing to establish, because it could actually help point the conversation in many more directions. Even just the acknowledgement, there's a hint of that in the last hearing that was like, oh, things underwater. And then it was like, okay, well, we got to talk about that in the closed hearing. So clearly there was an indication there that there are situations underwater. But, this idea that anomalous phenomena only exists way up in the sky or way under the ocean where we normally aren't, that's an absolute fallacy. And to me, that's a way to debase experiencers, because where are we? We're on land. 99 times out of 100, we're sitting around in land. We're encountering anomalous phenomena in our homes, while we're driving our cars, in our backyards, out in the woods, wherever, right? But so much of the conversation for decades has been way up in the sky, or maybe, just maybe, down underwater. And so I think that just opening up the possibility that anomalous experience happens everywhere would be a good place to start.
That is probably solid here. To go to a quick question here, and we'll try and get one of them in from the audience here. And this is from Applesauce. What could an experiencer show that a camera has not shown over the last several years?
Well, there has been like scoop marks and scarring that have been studied. There has been bone anomalies in some experiencers. There've been chronic illness, but I think marks is one thing that some experiencers, if you're looking for objective physical evidence that remains in situations like this, there's more physical evidence than gets talked about often in the news media, or even within our community a lot of times. And there are people like some of the scientists that we've mentioned earlier tonight that have done more work looking at that than they've necessarily talked about in public. And there are other studies like that where some of that physical, where some of that, the scarring and things like that, have been studied, or the fact that, that material has been recovered from people's bodies. People talk about implants and things like that. Well, there have been some pieces that have been pulled out of people, or that experiencers have been left with at times. And there's more of that than people want to say, because, if you've got a material like that, that, depending on who hearing that exists, that might be priceless material.
Jay, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We got one more segment with Jay Christopher King on Spaced Out Radio. ET Talk and Disclosure continues right after this. Stay tuned. Solid show so far, man. Solid.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I think it feels good. I think this is my second time doing it just mano a mano style with you. Mano a mano with Dirty Filth down there. And I've done a few panels with you, I think, but I think I feel like I'm getting the hang of the flow a little bit better.
You're doing
it's
good.
Nice.
You're doing solid.
Thanks, man.
Doing solid.
You're doing solid.
Your coach James Iandoli will be happy with you right now. He's grading you.
Dude.
He's grading you.
Yeah, that's going to be, well, when you say coach, it just makes me think that I'm just going to have to be like that in 2 years I'm going to be half as jacked as James is, which is absolutely not true. Like I don't think I have the frame for it. That guy, if you threw like a bunch of hair and some like school glue at James Andoli, it would make like he would already be like a Bigfoot costume. You know what I mean? He is a giant, he is a mammoth of a man. And he's anyway, like I like his workout routine. Oh man, it stresses me out just thinking about it. I know he's listening, so I'm just goofing around, but
he's laughing right now. He's laughing.
That dude is cut. Yep. And we're gonna have our fourth iteration of New York City UFO Supper Club this weekend. Guess what? Guess who's going to be there? Science Bob McGuire is going to be there on Saturday. We're gonna have we're gonna eat Italian food with Science Bob McGuire in Manhattan. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh, have you met him face to face yet?
No, I haven't. I've hung. We both did work for Richard Dolan together way back in the day. Yeah. Like we've known each other for gosh, maybe about 3 years now or something like that. Yeah. But it's gonna be awesome to be able to hang out with him in person. I'm looking forward to it.
You will love Science Bob, and his wife Science Sharon.
Yep.
Yeah. Give her a big hug. She's a good hugger.
Oh, yeah, that's what I hear. I'm super psyched about that. It's going to be great. Yeah. Kirsten Blackburn's going to be there, and some other folks are going to be there. It's going to be great. Yeah.
Confirm for me if Kirsten Blackburn's hair is orange, like her picture. I want a picture of that. I want a up close and personal.
All right, we'll do. Usually she's actually got two tones. So sometimes if she's orange up here, she's actually yellow down here. And if she's red up here, she's orange down here. So we'll see what she's got going on Saturday.
Excellent.
Awesome. Yeah.
Excellent. Appreciate that.
Yep.
This is awesome, man. What are you drawing there, Dirty Filth?
This is a UFO zipping through space.
You're on the little cards, the handout cards today.
I got to get 20,000 done.
20,000? Why 20,000?
Because I got to hand out a bunch of random people over in Vegas next year, man.
You're going to hand out 20,000.
20,000 metric, so like 60 or so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just for the gift bags. You got to do another 60 to leave around the casino bathrooms.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Dirty Filth just had his first book come out on Amazon, and it's all about weird cartoons. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
There's a couple pictures of Dave in there as well.
Yeah.
And some Science Bob.
Did Brandon Fugel make it into the book?
Yes. It was the dream that I had where I went and I was working at Science Bob and Dave's used appliances and rockets. And I came in and Science Bob's like, Brandon Fugel bought a new stove. He brought in his old gas stove. You can take it if you want. I've always wanted to. I love gas stoves. This is just awkward, weird conversation going from UFOs to gas stoves. But nonetheless, I was like, okay. And they peer pressured me into taking it. And I took Brandon Fugel's used gas stove in my dream at Science Bob and Dave's used appliances and rockets.
Nice. Nice.
Apparently that's where I work when I go to sleep every night. I wake up and in the dream world and I go and work in an appliance place for Science Bob and Dave.
Nice.
Oh, boy.
Your dreamland job. You know, I mean, look at the cut of that jib of J. Christopher King there. You got to do a cartoon on that. That's nice, you know,
that's sharp.
That Clark Kent hairdo with that gorgeous Wolverine beard. Absolutely. That's a superhero right there, man.
Gorgeous Wolverine beard. I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's accurate, but I'll take it.
He's got some good chops, that's for sure.
Yeah. Jonathan Davies, I will get to your question next, buddy. Thank you to Amy, YJ, Lara, Dennis, and Smithy for the super chats tonight. It's a great way to support what we do. And don't forget, grab your swag from Spaced Out Radio. Go check it out on our website, spacedoutradio.com. Here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with good discussion with J. Christopher King, experiencers and disclosure. How do the two fit together? Is there a puzzle piece that fits both sides of what they're trying to explain? And Jay, we thank you for coming on in until the top of the hour here. I know it's late for you in New York, but a couple of audience questions here. And I love this one by our mutual friend, Jonathan Davies here, who is asking, maybe we should hold an experiencers press event the same day as the hearings. How would that go over?
Oh my gosh. I wonder, I mean, I think that having an experiencer event, he also asked, how about a worldwide experiencer day on same day as the next hearing? I think something along those lines, something to highlight the experiencers around or on the next day of the hearing. I think that could be really interesting. I don't see any reason why not to. I think that being able to marry those two situations, hopefully, I mean, it could give people more talking points. It could give the media more to talk about. It could. People tend to kind of operate from a position of laziness often with so many situations, and it certainly seems like that's true in the news media. So having more to talk about in a subject when it's definitely going to be the topic of the day, I don't see how that could be a bad thing.
I don't see how it could be either. It would be very interesting to all of a sudden set up in a conference room right near, Washington, D.C., where the talks are going on, because, I think you could attract a number of high-profile people to something like that. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, and there's kind of there's a pattern that's already there for it. There have already been people that have done, like Stephen Bassett with the citizens hearings, and Stephen Greer, whatever it is Stephen Greer now, but the old National Press Club events and things like that. I mean, there's definitely a format that could be adapted in a way that could be grounded in a certain way, and could appear in a kind of a formal light that might be really great. I don't know. It wouldn't even have to necessarily be like that. You know what I mean? But I think that there's something there. I think Jonathan's got a good idea for sure.
All right, let's go to Dennis here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about an island being purchased from New Zealand with the use of 30-pound silver bars in relation to the currency needs of former Yugoslavia? I'm not sure what that means for what we're talking about, so we'll just skip that one. I apologize. I do not read these or pre-read these. I go straight in.
No, that's great.
I go straight into them.
Hey,
I am collecting silver, man. I am collecting silver. So, I mean, I don't have 30 pounds yet, but if I could buy a piece of New Zealand with the silver I own, I'm in. I
mean, I've always been drawn to silver myself too. I think it's pretty beautiful. It dings up pretty easily, but it's a nice metal for sure. And I don't know how much it would cost. I mean, when I started reading that, I thought that was going to be one of those high school math pop quizzes where I'm starting to have to think about, there's a train leaving your house, Dave, and there's a train leaving my house, and we're going to have to meet somewhere. Yeah, for sure.
I'm hearing that. I'm feeling that. All right. As we continue on here, let's go to YJ's question here. As an ongoing experiencer, would you work with a science team to facilitate contact if possible?
Yeah. I think I would. I think that I heard of a recent effort to do this that just took place a few weeks ago at the Monroe Institute. I don't know if, I mean, I think you and I both know a couple people that were probably there. It's not really, I don't think that it's fair game to say who was there, but it did happen and people have talked about it. Some of the participants have mentioned it online. So I feel a little bit freer to talk about it, but there was an event using all of the Monroe Institute's gear just a few weeks ago, and there are some prominent experiencers that were there, and part of the point was to use some of their detection gear and partly to use like the kind of brain tuning binaural beats and things like that the Monroe Institute is known for, to kind of try to call in something. And according to some of the, I haven't seen the documentation, but it seems like there may have been some anomalies there, and it seems like some of them may have been recorded. So I think that there should be definitely more initiatives like that in the future. And I think that there will be. I've heard talk that even just that is going to be something that cycles maybe every year or something like that, which would be cool. But, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Like, I think that in the days ahead, as people start to see more funding available for situations like this, I think that we're maybe in 5 years, it's going to be a situation where you can throw a rock and hit 5 different, scientific groups looking at this in a really tangible and real way. We'll see.
Well, as we got about 15 minutes here, let's really focus on how can people like the entire disclosure movement, whether it's government, whether it's people like Lou Elizondo, whether it's people who've been doing this for 50 years, what progression can they bring from experiencers to help the cause, to get out of that tinfoil stigma?
What can be brought out of the experiencers to get out of the tinfoil stigma?
Yes.
I think that for the experiencers themselves, being able to recount things is really key. I think that really, people have really good BS detectors. You know what I mean? Like we often wonder whether something's true or not, but often when we get in situations where we hear people speaking from the heart, we have a pretty good sense of whether we're somebody's trying to trick us or not. And so I think that getting away from the tinfoil hat is as easy as trying to recount something as personably as possible. Because especially if people can kind of remove the anxiety triggers, which is really hard and takes a lot of work. But if somebody can kind of get down to their baseline and just kind of speak from the heart to somebody about the experiences that they've had, the intuition, the BS detectors, and the kind of the read that we all have as adults, looking at somebody's micro expressions and stuff like that, trying to figure out what's going on with them. I think that it goes a long way. And, people aren't going to see tinfoil hats when they hear more, when people, experiencers, are given more of a soapbox, are given more of a microphone, and are out there and able to feel like they can tell their stories to other people.
I think first, though, we have to get the proper people in front of the media. It's not, the media tends to stigmatize who experiencers are. They don't look at them as the scientists at Skinwalker Ranch. They don't look at them as people like you and I having this conversation. And I'm not just saying professional people here, but there's a stigma that goes along with the media. And I've said this many a times on the show. I'll say it again right now. The majority of people in newsrooms who look at experiencers believe they're night shift workers at the local convenience store or gas station. They've never made more than minimum wage. They don't have a dental plan. And they are people who have really bad hair, no teeth, and all they care about is the latest conspiracy theories. And that's the idea. And I wish I was making this up, Jay. I wish I was, but
Yeah.
nearly 10 years in a newsroom, I know exactly what that image and that stigma is. And I think what happens is the news media goes and looks for that stigma to look on camera because they want that crazy lady or they want that crazy guy in their eyes talking about UFOs and aliens. You know what I'm saying? Maybe with a big piece of chaw in their mouth at the same time. You know, they want that. They don't want to see that this is happening to ordinary, everyday people, professionals, construction workers, dentists, lawyers, glass manufacturers, whoever it is. And we got to get rid of that. We need to put the right people in front of them.
Well, along the lines of what you're saying, and John Davies over in the chat is talking about the Brazilian hearing. Partially, I think it depends on context, because Robert Salas is an experiencer. Lou Elizondo, he won't talk about it himself, but there's a lot of chatter that would seem to suggest that he is one as well, right? I don't think that people get that invested in this field if they haven't had experiences of their own, typically. And so I think that regardless of whether the media recognizes it or not, there are people that are going to be getting in front of the cameras and that are probably already in front of the cameras, and so I think that part of it is contextualizing it for people and saying, like, no, that person is an experiencer themselves. Like that person that's testifying, Robert Salas, there was the UAP up in the sky. It knocked out 10 nuclear missiles. That guy had an anomalous experience, and now he's testifying and in front of Congress. And not only that, like his case was brought up in the last the last congressional hearing at the House. So, I think that there's an element where part of it is on a grassroots level. There can be the context of like looking at situations, because you're absolutely right. It's not just the janitors out there. I mean, John Lennon spoke so many times about his encounters with non-human entities and UFOs, and even got a weird ball from one of them, supposedly, things like this. And, Jimi Hendrix, there's so many like musicians that have had pivotal situations there, and even scientists that are able to talk about this stuff, like Tyler D, who, just to play fair, I won't name who that person is from Diana Pasulka's book, but he was a chief engineer for the International Space Station, and he was talking about himself as an experiencer. And he also holds patents in like lots of robotic surgery devices, right? And so like if you trust yourself to get, really fine-tuned surgery, or if you trust that the International Space Station is not going to fall out of orbit, you're trusting the brains of some of these experiencers, right? So, I think that some of it will be about context and about some brave people that are already in the public eye coming forward and saying, like, yeah, no, that's me too. That happened to me too.
What about a family like the Bledsoes? Where do you see them playing into this, with Chris Bledsoe being pretty much a scientific experiment on ET and religious contact?
Yeah, his is a really interesting case. I mean, the whole family and the land there, and it's challenging because often with experiencers, there's an element of filtration, because parts, there's situations where people just encounter grace, right? And then there are a lot of situations where people encounter something where it gets more into a Hall of Mirrors territory, where it seems like there's what like people like Dr. Sean Esbjorn Hargens calls the mutual enactment hypothesis, whereby people will get beamed up to a ship and then they'll see their dead mother or something like that, right? And then they get confused. And, there are all these hypotheses about why would somebody have some kind of symbolic experience within this paranormal framework, And then there are people like Don Hoffman, who wrote a book called The Case Against Reality, that suggests that like our filters are built up just so that we can survive, and most of what we see is not accurate, right? We're so filtered down with what we see, and that people like Valet and others have posited that there could be a holographic element where many of these beings could basically look at us in a form of telepathic communication and bring out the symbols that are meaningful for us and spit them back out to us in a way that will be most resonant to us for the purposes of what they think would be a productive conversation, right? And so when you look at things from that kind of a framework, and then you look at a family case like the Bledsoes, I see people that have already had a spiritual ideology, and then it kept coming back to them. And so it's challenging because there's the element where people use the area as a scientific experiment, and then there's the part where other people were in good faith, went there and were able to through the wonderful host that Chris Bledsoe can be, showed people like Science Bob and Grant Cameron and others amazing situations on the property as well. And so I think that it's amazing that they've been able to, that they've opened themselves up in the way that they did, and they did it so long ago. That takes a lot of courage and bravery, and they definitely took a lot of hits for it. That's for sure.
Do you see at any point where the government will ask for experiencers? It's one thing to try and get an experiencer to stand up at a congressional hearing, but do you see, people like Tim Burchett or Mike Gallagher, who's shown a lot of interest, or even, others out there, Rubio and et al., coming up and saying, okay, enough of the government, enough of the military. Let us talk to some people. Let us get this real feeling of what is going on. I mean, the Bledsoes are their own case study, so that's easy to submit. But I see a day, man. I want to see that day where Jay King or Jonathan Davies or Melinda Leslie or whomever are sitting at that table taking questions.
I mean, I think that could be really cool. And it's going to be challenging though, because the day after that happens, Dave, then because people in situations like that, it's part of their job that they have to take information and then exploit it for, in the kind of military sense of the word, they have to take a situation and then spin it in a way that works for them, right? And so it's going to be challenging because it'll be amazing to see that happen, and then it'll also be interesting to see, the day after, how different people use in kind of a prismatic way for that to spin out as a political football. And so it'll be challenging, it's going to be there. And then we're going to have to be ready, and we're going to have to be ready for the conversation of seeing all of a sudden this not just being taken seriously, but this being taken seriously in like a potentially ugly and partisan way as well, when it comes down to politicians and things like that.
What's the future here? 4 minutes to go. Do experiencers get their day in the sunshine?
I mean, yes, absolutely. I mean, in some ways, the last 4.5 years has been just like a growing sunrise for experiencers, arguably, at least ever since the December 2017 New York Times article that Ralph Leslie and Helene Cooper did, I feel like every few months we've actually gotten so used to it that we're almost within ufology we're almost spoiled at this point, where if there's a slow news week, we're like, what the heck is going on? Like nothing's happened in 5 days. when you and I both know that the scene before that was a way, way different world, right? And so now we're in a situation where we think back to just a year ago, before, Avi Loeb's book came out. Even Avi Loeb's book, Extraterrestrial, with Uamuamu and stuff like that, that almost seems like an antique, with the speed with which the dialogue is progressing and with how quickly things are progressing. I mean, he went from thinking that was the first time that we had interstellar contact to bringing Lou Elizondo on and Jacques Vallée and others onto his Galileo project, right? Well, some shoe had to drop between last September and now for that to have happened. And I think that has a lot to do with the kind of the in progress sunrise that's happening right now for experiencers.
Let's get to one question here with 2.5 minutes to go. Elena is asking, Jay, do you have any advice for someone looking to start a local experiencer meetup? Any lessons you had to learn the hard way?
Oh, that's a great question. Thanks, Elena. It's great to see you here. For an in-person situation, I think that small group scenarios are really helpful for experiencer meetups, especially if people are going to be talking about their own stories. Because as Kirsten and other people in the chat here can attest, we've in the experiencer group, we often cap our experiencer support meetings at about 12 people plus the hosts, and that's about the max that we can do to have a meeting run in 2 to 3 hours. Because once people start opening up about this stuff, it just turns into, for very good reason, it's like a fire hose. It's just, there's so much context, there's so much history, and for a lot of people, they're just opening up for the first time. And so one thing that I would suggest is that if you try to start a local experiencer meetup, Elena, or others, and you see that only 3 or 4 people might be coming to your event, and don't be disheartened by that, because some of those small group situations can actually be the most fruitful in terms of people feeling like they're being heard and actually being able to have productive dialogue in a situation like this. So I would say small groups are great, and meeting in a place where you don't feel like you have to whisper, that's also important as well.
Jay, I want to say a big thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. We got about 45 seconds left. Tell everybody where they can find your work, find your information, find the Experiencers group.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter. The Experiencer group Twitter handle is @4experiencers. That's FOR Experiencers. You can also find me at symbol JAYC King 78, rolls right off the tongue. And for those that would like to set up an account at the Experiencer group, you can definitely do that. The best place to do that is go to community.theexperiencergroup.com/signup. community.theexperiencergroup.com/signup. And there you can create a login, and then after that, you'll see a prompt to just answer 3 questions about your experiences, and we can go from there.
J. Christopher King, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio. We will do it again very, very soon. Coming up next, we continue on with a spooky story from the swamp. Then Tim Senor is here with the UFO report. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio is next. Great job, buddy. Great job.
That was awesome. Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Sorry about the beginning, man.
Dude, no worries at all. I'm so glad that your kids are home and then you're gonna have a great birthday tomorrow. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, for sure.
Thank you. I very much appreciate it. Let's talk soon, and I know we'll talk in Jonathan's group as well. So you take care and go get some sleep now, man.
All right, I will. Have a great night, man. I loved it. It's always a pleasure. See you soon.
Take care, my friend. We'll talk soon.
See you soon.
Good night. Kirsten Blackburn, I need you to get a hold of us too, because I'd love to bring you on the show. So if you don't mind, DM me on Twitter. It would be wonderful. Or on Facebook. I'll be back here. Dirty Filth, it's time for you to continue your beautiful art.
My beautiful art.
There you go. I'll be right back.
Make sure you pet the dogs for me, Dave.
Just draw some dogs.
I would like to tell everybody that Dave's dogs were digging in the garden. He had to go out there and Macho Man elbow drop them. Sorry, Dave. Told you secret. So, I did a couple drawings here, but we're going to do a weather balloon guide because they're not UFOs, folks. It's weather balloons. I still have no cats, so it's all good. I think I've only ever seen one UFO. Seen something weird. It might have been a meteorite when I was a kid, or an asteroid, or whatever the correct terminology is. I'm not sure. I will be stand to be corrected. So, nonetheless, but I did film the one that I know I seen, and I phoned my pops, and my mom seen it, and her boyfriend seen it, and of course, when I went to film it, running through my head, I'm like, gotta make sure it can't be like those guys just like, oh, it's a UFO, and he's like, I don't know, he's like juggling flaming chainsaws or something, and he can't make an actual like decent film of the picture. But nonetheless, I filmed it, thought it was a UFO. It was pretty good. I think I already said this before. Can't remember. Nonetheless, that's the story again. I'm just a filler-in guy. And oh, bloody hells. Going back to the magical colors. So we got the black triangle, got the Bob Lazar sports model. We have the Brazilian triangle, or the Brazilian triangle. Well, if there's triangle craft in Brazil, apparently nobody's heard of it, so there's going to be some geeks out there that can look into that. Nonetheless, it's the Brazilian special, because a lot of the pictures that I looked up that were from Brazil back in the day, they look like a ball with like two kind of beams of light coming out of them. So that's why I call it the Brazilian special. I think it's the name. Whatever, I probably got a more technical one. Doesn't matter. Up next, we're gonna have the Phoenix Lights. Classic. Everybody seems to be quiet about that. That should be something that should be at those congressional hearings or whatever it is the nerds are talking about. And then after the Phoenix Lights, we're going to have the classic cigar. It might be a disc, but they usually went with the cigar. So there's the cigar. And then the classic 1940s special. And they used to have those cheesy movies back in the 30s and 40s and whatnot. The aliens. Or 40s rather, not 30s. They might have had them in the 30s. Depends how bad the time travelers have ruined everything for everybody. And that's why we have the Mandela effect. Terrible time travelers.
Looking good, Dirty Filth. Looking good. Hi, Gorgeous D. Swagger. You know, you don't have to keep quiet just because I came back.
What? I was actually looking for my tea, but I didn't make any, so bloody hell.
How did you not make tea for tonight?
Well, I had tea previously, but forgot about it, but I'm gonna go plug that in right now. I'll be right back. Wait a second. We had a little bit of background to do on this first, Dave.
Okay. Well, we're going to do our final commercial break here, and I want to say thank you to Amy, YJ, Lara, Dennis, hiccup, and Smithy for that amazing super chats tonight. It's a great way to support what we do. Thank you to everybody who goes on to Amazon to buy Dirty Filth's new art book of cartoons, and everybody who shops at our Spaced Out Radio store, grabbing your swag. We really do appreciate it. And let's roll into hour number 3. Swamp Dweller is next. Hold on.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Cardionost. Cardionost is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time, once again, where we head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on another spooky journey.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. I'm writing this to you because my friends and I had an encounter with something in the woods and we are unsure of what it was. For a while now, ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated with Point Pleasant, West Virginia. My dad used to tell me stories of the Mothman and how it terrorized the small town back in the 60s. It's because of his stories I started doing research into other cryptids and urban legends, such as skinwalkers, wendigos, the Jersey Devil, and many others. Point Pleasant was the closest town to me, so I made it a goal to drive down there for the weekend on the 53rd anniversary of the first Mothman sighting. On Friday, November 15th, I picked up my stepbrother and stepsister and we headed down to West Virginia. They were both skeptics. They didn't care about the legend. I honestly don't know why they wanted to go in the first place. We made it to the small town around 3 p.m. and checked into the Low Hotel. A couple of hours after going to the Mothman Museum and the other small shops, my two friends Katie and Joanna made it down to the weekend trip. We met at the Mothman restaurant where some locals knew we were from out of town and enjoyed us talking about the small town. One of them asked, "You folks go to the TNT area yet?" I responded with, "Not yet, but it's on our to-do list." This is when our group thought it would be a great idea to go there at night and head to the area where Mothman was. Now, this is an area where two young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry, and Steve and Mary Mallet, were both apparently seeing this Mothman. We bought lights and headlamps and headed to the area around 8:45 p.m. We approached a gate that was blocked off so no vehicles could pass by and decided to get out of the car and walk into the wooded area. It was really dark and we would have to guide our way with these really bad flashlights, honestly. We had a GPS leading us as well to one of the bunkers. We made it into an opening in the forest where I believe the factory's building once stood before getting demolished. It was at this point my stepsister and Joanna saw a pair of eyes staring at us from the woods. Whatever it was turned around and walked back into the forest. They assumed it was a really big animal, and for our safety, we headed back to the car. As we passed the gate, I noticed it could be lifted with 2 people, and we decided to open it up and head in. As soon as we passed the open area, we found a bunker to our right. I parked the car and went inside to get some pictures. One of our friends was getting a little uncomfortable, so for her sake, I told her we will come back when it's daylight, so we could be aware of our surroundings in the woods. We got back in the car and I pulled back onto the road. Before we took off, Katie and I told the group we were going to close the fence since it was closed for a reason. We got out of the car, which was facing away from the fence, and the only lights we had were my brake lights on. We picked up the fence and slowly started moving it back into place. That's when I saw it. A pair of glowing eyes, staring at us from the bunker we were just at. They stood 6 to 7 feet off the ground, and it was just staring at us. I stopped moving and I said, "Katie, do you see that?" She responded with, "What?" and looked up and saw the eyes too. The moment we both were looking at the eyes, they seemingly became red and started coming at us. I yelled, "Katie, run!" And as she screamed and ran for the car, the creature pursuing us let out this horrifying roar. Nothing we've ever heard before. As Katie ran, she fell and hit the ground hard, and I didn't move till I knew she was safely inside. As soon as I saw her get in, I ran. The eyes were probably 10 to 15 feet behind us at the moment, and I jumped in the car and pressed on the gas as hard as I could. The road to get out of the TNT area is a 35-mile-per-hour speed zone, and I was doing easily 100 getting out of there. We were very shaken up about the event, but it honestly felt like history was repeating itself 53 years ago. Once we got back to the hotel, we gathered our thoughts and tried to think logically about what we saw. We looked up wildlife local to the area and tried to compare the noise we heard to local animals, and nothing matched. I'm not saying it was the Mothman or the Sheep Squatch or a Wendigo or anything like that. My group and I have decided to invest in tech to record our cryptid hunts from now on, and we will be going back to Point Pleasant soon to try and capture what we saw on camera. Guys, cryptid hunting is no joke. What we felt was genuine fear, and we could have died that night. Yes, it might have been a bear, it might have been a mountain lion, but you gotta be careful with who knows what's out there, waiting in the dark for its next meal.
And that's why we love the Swamp Dweller around here, freaking us out each and every day with a spooky story. You can follow the Swamp Dweller as well. Go to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads. Hit subscribe. He's literally got thousands of stories just like that one right there for you. He's got over 265,000 subscribers. Well worth it. I listen to him each and every night. All right, let's get to it. It is time once again to bring in Tim Senor for the UFO Report.
Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know.
Welcome back, Tim Senor, for the UFO Report. How's it going, buddy?
It's going great, Dave. How are you tonight?
I am tripping out a little bit tonight. Either you
really?
had your camera reversed the other night, or you changed your door, so your door opens from the other side now.
Yeah, the posters should read correctly this time. I think my camera was reversed last time.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
in fact, I should even mention that I opened my door last time and you thought, and I tricked you, didn't I, into thinking that was a ghost perhaps, but that was just me. I should be absolutely clear. I hoaxed that. That was not real.
Wow. Hoaxer Tim here on
That's right. I
Spaced Out Radio.
inadvertently tricked your audience, and I apologize for that because I don't want to appear as a hoaxer.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
A lot of times what happens is my eyes are always moving. I'm watching the chat room. I'm watching the time. I'm watching the screen. So when something catches out of the corner of my eye that I don't have time to understand that.
And I can bump this, or sometimes I'm opening it or closing it because I'm trying to get oxygen in this little room. So I apologize to your audience if they thought I was being serious with my mystery door.
There you go.
I was just being tricky, and I apologize for that.
We'll accept that. We'll accept that.
All right.
All right, my friend. There was some big news over the last 48 hours here coming out of Travis Taylor, major scientist, and the Skinwalker Ranch's Brandon Fugel, who was really defending Travis Taylor, his head scientist with Skinwalker Ranch, all because Mr. Taylor had a secret job. Let's get right to this tonight, Tim.
That's right. And so one of the Pentagon's chief UFO experts has revealed his identity for the first time and claims he has seen countless mystery crafts. So after writing a book on how the US government should prepare for alien contact, Dr. Travis Taylor was offered the job of chief scientist for the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, the organization created by Congress to track UFO sightings. And so, hidden right in plain sight, Dr. Taylor has been long known for a top investigator of UFOs and the paranormal at Skinwalker Ranch, as well as other History Channel programs. However, unbeknownst to all but a handful of people, he was living a double life as the chief scientist for the Pentagon's UAP task force. And so now we have this new information coming to light, and perhaps we're going to see a new replacement in the public eye for Luis Elizondo as our first point of contact. What do you think about that, Dave?
Well, I was watching on Twitter after the show last night, and even before, and watching Brandon Fugel get absolutely a little forward, shall we say, with a lot of people who were really questioning whether or not Travis Taylor was pulling the wool over the scientists at Skinwalker Ranch, and whether or not that Brandon Fugel knew that his chief scientist was really a government agent. And there were a lot of questions on whether or not, Tim, if Brandon Fugel should fire Travis Taylor for being dishonest, so to speak. However, Brandon Fugel, owner of Skinwalker Ranch, came to the defense of Travis Taylor, saying him not telling him was something that was very, very impressive. He wasn't upset, and that Taylor apologized for holding the secret tight to his chest, and that Fugel said that really says a lot about the integrity of the man, let alone the position that he has been put in responsibility for. But I also believe, too, that maybe this also outs Brandon Fugel a little bit, in that he might be a little bit more tied to the government than we think of him as a realtor and real estate guru in the state of Utah, who's worth probably a couple $100 million, if not more. What's your opinion?
Well, I think the fact that we didn't know that Travis Taylor was a part of the UAP task force speaks quite highly to his credibility to be able to compartmentalize his work so significantly. To be able to maintain confidentiality and NDAs is incredibly important to this topic, and to be able to parse out information as it's requested and to the people that it's delegated to, I think is crucial. And so, I love the idea of transparency, but I also understand the need for classification up into the point where it can safely be released to the public. And a lot of that goes in the vetting of information before it's released. And so a lot of this threat narrative is going to melt away, I think, with more and more data coming out on the actual performance of the UAP and what we're actually finding out. And so Brandon Fugel coming to the support of Travis Taylor doesn't surprise me, because we also know that Brandon Fugel is probably a man of mystery also, and able to compartmentalize and keep secrets of his own. And so we know that there were certain rules that were set up by the previous Skinwalker Ranch landowner that had to be fulfilled by the current owner. We don't know what those rules and regulations were. I believe one of them was not to dig, and we know that they broke that one. But I believe that there were probably more crucial aspects to that agreement that he's probably keeping. And as we understand, it would probably be confidential. So confidentiality is no new topic for anybody involved in this. But it actually speaks high regards to the players involved in their ability to keep those secrets.
Well, I understand that, Tim. I greatly appreciate that. But I'll be honest with you. When I was reading this last night, my first inclination was Brandon Fugel has to fire him. He has to. If Brandon Fugel is not tied to the government, he has to fire him, no matter how good he is. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that's wrong. But the more I thought about it, the more, and when I read Fugel's statements, I realized that my own thoughts on it were very reactionary. And we don't know the true extent of the ties still between the United States government and ownership of Skinwalker Ranch regarding the phenomena. We don't.
And so why would you feel that he would have to be terminated? I'm sorry.
Well, if this was, put it this way, if I all of a sudden hired someone for Spaced Out Radio, and then I found out that they were AKA a double agent working for the US government or any government, Canadian government, whatever it may be, I would feel let down that my public persona was going to take some hits. And a lot of people questioned Brandon Fugel on that last night and yesterday and even into today, saying, do you not feel that you have been duped? And he was very much on the defensive about that, claiming not at all. He doesn't feel that way. He doesn't feel like he is, had the wool pulled over his eyes. He welcomes Travis Taylor doing the double duty. And, good on him for doing that. Good on him for not making rash decisions and thinking about things. But to me, it says one of two things, or one of a couple things. Either A, Brandon Fugel really is one hell of a good guy. B, he sees the potential that Travis Taylor brings because just maybe he'll be able to get some stuff confirmed through other sources. Or C, he kept him on for the sake that Taylor is doing incredible work. He's a brilliant man, and he needs them, or he needs him in order to, continue pressing the ball forward on the Skinwalker court. I mean, that's just something that we have to think about,
right? And another way to look at it from Brandon's point of view is he may feel like, boy, did I hire well, like I chose the top guy, and like I'm pretty sure that we're seeing very compartmentalized data, right? So the stuff that we see on Skinwalker, the show, is designed just for the public. Obviously, the data that Travis Taylor is working on at that location is all given directly to his employer. And so that is compartmentalized that way. And then the work that he's doing for the government, I'm assuming, is compartmentalized for them, and the work that he did with the task force. And never the twain shall meet, I think, should theoretically be the way, if you're going to work that way. So if he's able to operate under those conditions, then good on him. I don't think that it's a conflict of interest in any way, shape, or form. I could see reactionary wanting to terminate the relationship and the occupational relationship. But I think the bigger picture here is that he probably has the top guy in the field. This is a lot of theoretical science, and so you need somebody that's flexible in the field. And so you're talking about a task force member, somebody that's boots on the ground, able to think outside of the box and figure out situations as they're happening. We have witnessed him do that even on Skinwalker, the TV show. So we know he has that ability to think as things are taking place and outside of the box. So I'm pretty sure that Brandon is seeing this as one score for the team, for him, perhaps, that he actually has one of the top scientists potentially in the country for this. So yeah, there's definitely two ways to look at it. I can see it being controversial.
And Jonathan Davies, who's a good friend of this show, says Travis is now much better informed and able to have even more insight at the ranch, which is true. But does this not mean that because of his involvement, that maybe stuff that we would like to know will never come out of Skinwalker Ranch during its study?
Potentially. And also, is he now distracted now that he's become a public figure and well known to be a member of this task force? Will he be targeted more for interviews? Will we start seeing him on podcasts? Will it distract him from his mission and take away time from his science? And so, we have yet to see that. I would like to think that the man himself, obviously, he has a lot of information from a lot of sources. And so if anyone is in the know right now, it's Dr. Travis Taylor.
Very true. Very true. All right. Let's move on to your second topic of the night, as we only have a couple minutes here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. And this is Lou Elizondo. We're going to spend some time on this because Elizondo is part of some big time news where his filing of his complaint to the Pentagon through the Inspector General became public. Do we know how it became public, Tim?
We do. It was made public through Daniel Miller and his work. And so this was a release that came out just earlier this week. It's considered a DoD hotline fraud, waste, and abuse complaint form. And so these are traditionally filled out if there's any issues within the government purview and within the DoD. And so it's a multi-page report that was released with only personal data blacked out. So 99.9% of this report was public, with the exception of a few details that may have been specific to programs. So most of it was unclassified to start with. Anyways, we can definitely breeze forward through some of it at some point. I'd love to highlight a little bit of it that I think is really pertinent information.
Well, the one thing that I noticed while reading it is that Lou Elizondo, as much as I love the guy, has terrible penmanship. Terrible penmanship. As a journalist, I got to tell you, I like neat writing.
Right.
It makes life easier. But his Dr. Chicken Scratch that he has, my goodness, it was a tough read.
Well, it tells you what his forte is,
I'm sure he can pick off anything at about 300-400 yards, maybe 500 or more, but his writing is terrible. Terrible penmanship by Lou Elizondo on the UFO Report with Tim Senor. We continue talking about Lou Elizondo, his Inspector General's report and complaint that he filed. We'll tell you why it's important when we come back on Spaced Out Radio next. All right, we're clear, Tim.
Cool. Fun night. You had a great guest on tonight, by the way.
Jay King is amazing.
Really, really deep, intellectual dude. Very cool to listen to. Doing great work.
Why do you got your mic on mute? You don't want to talk to me? You don't want me to sing? You don't want to sing with me?
No, I was drinking and I wasn't sure. Sometimes it's bubbly. I'm actually shy, believe it or not.
Just do it with me. Love, exciting and new.
Oh man.
Come aboard, Timmy. We're expecting you.
And mute. I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Just kidding, bud. That was a cruel joke.
And it was kind of funny. Hello, stunning Jessica S.
I didn't know this document revealed Luis Elizondo's middle name, which is cool. I didn't know that he had one before. So
What's it? It's Ralph?
No.
Ernesto?
No. Does anyone in your audience know his middle name by chance?
Don't make me go look, because I'm going to
10 points. 10 points. No, you don't have to look it up. Just let's see if your audience knows.
Dave, what is your favorite Guns N' Roses song? Paradise City. Number 2 would be Rocket Queen. Number 3, Chinese Democracy. Number 4, Estranged. Number 5 would be There Was a Time. Number 6 would be You Could Be Mine. Number 7 would be Coma. Would you like me to continue? Because I got a big list.
Estrada. That could be.
Freddie.
Please continue. Freddie? Ace. I always
Terry
wanted
Hall.
my middle name to be Ace.
Terry Hall's on the Love Boat.
Yeah, he is.
And I know I'll take a lot of heat from fellow Guns N' Roses listeners and fans. Behind Appetite for Destruction, the album Chinese Democracy is the second best album. Better than Use Your Illusions, 1 and 2. Better.
You're a fan. I get
But
it.
nobody gave it an opportunity because Slash and Duff weren't on the album. But it is a fantastic album. Hard to believe that came out in 2008.
Is a slashless Guns N' Roses isn't Guns N' Roses.
Sure it is.
Slashless?
Sure it is. Oh, yeah. Dude, if you would have
Logan got it.
If you would have seen how tight Ron Bumblefoot Thal, DJ Ashba, and Richard Fortus were together playing a trio of electric guitars for GNR, it was incredible. Incredible. To me, when I saw the opening of the tour, and then I saw them again about 9 months later in Vancouver on the Not This Lifetime tour, Slash to me looks like he's just mailing it in. He's just playing for the money. He's not playing for the actual care of the music. Yet, if you watched Bumblefoot and DJ Ashba play with Richard Fortus, dude, it was way tighter. Way tighter. Right?
Yeah.
I agree. YJ Overlander with the comment of the night here. Chinese Democracy is a masterpiece. This is why I love YJ right there. The guy knows his music. He knows his vehicles. And he's a BC boy. Love him. Love him. Here we go, everyone.
Awesome. I am also a fan.
We're rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Tim Senor is here with the UFO Report. Lou Elizondo, his letter of complaint to the Pentagon, to the Inspector General, making the rounds on UFO Twitter. And there's a lot of people cheering on their legend, cheering on their demigod of UFOs, man.
Yeah. The controversial material continues to unfold. It's an ever-changing world, and it gets more and more exciting every day. And so this new piece of information that came out earlier this week, I think, is pretty telling in the story that Lou has put forward on his leaving of his role in the government. And I would like to definitely go over some of the highlights here, as Lou put this complaint form in writing and submitted it. And so named in this form are 3 complaintees, if you will. The first one being Gary Reid, spelled R-E-I-D in this case, Susan Go, and Neil Tipton, who is maybe a new name for some people in this realm. And some of the wordage that was used in this complaint form is pretty strong, Dave. And I must say, I was a little bit taken back when I first read this at some of the language that was actually used, some pretty big words. And so if I may, I'm just going to go through a couple of the questions.
Our audience will love it, man. Our audience will love it.
All right. Well, to start, they go through some very simple things, just asking who was involved and to kind of describe some of the conduct. And I'm going to skip down to some of the highlights here and just give you one of them word for word here. It says, briefly summarize how you believe our office can assist you in regarding this matter. And Lou goes ahead and writes in his opinion here on what they should do to assist. And he says that the IG should conduct a comprehensive review, inquire, and investigation into abuse of power, lying to the public, destruction of evidence, and conspiracy. These are huge words to be using in an accusation and a presentation towards disruptive behavior on a complaint form like this to the DOD, making an official complaint like this. Pretty strong words to pretty high officials. What do you think? What was your first reaction when you read this?
My first reaction was the gloves are off. All right. Like, he has had enough. You know, like a lot of people, dude, they don't seem to understand that at this time when this was filed, the Pentagon was literally erasing Elizondo's emails and files. You know, and a lot of people like myself stated, look, this is what they allegedly did to Bob Lazar. And now we're seeing it with Elizondo. The problem is Elizondo had some very high up people like Harry Reid, rest his soul, Chris Mellon, Marco Rubio, and others who had his back. James Lukatsky had his back. And this is what doesn't make sense, is Susan Goff's office was trying to, Susan Goff, for people who don't know, she's the press secretary for the Pentagon. They were trying to erase his existence at the Pentagon. They got caught. Daniel Sheehan, being the all-out activist lawyer that he is, got involved, and that's where all of a sudden the brakes were put on by the Pentagon. And Elizondo is now fighting. I mean, we have to realize, Tim, and please correct me if I'm wrong here. Okay, and if not, blame Canada. But trying to erase a person like that from existence, that is, to me, right out of the Bourne movies, the
Yeah.
Jason Bourne movies,
Yeah.
where they're trying to erase him, man.
Yeah. It's another situation where we have an inconvenient truth that is escaping, and they try to put the message back in the bottle, the genie back in the bottle, and you just can't do it. And these attempts became more obvious. And fortunately for all of us, Lou Elizondo was someone that wasn't going to take that sitting down. And he did it in a very graceful way. Let's just reflect back at how he put this forth. He never named names. He explained the situation. He had his critics, and he just took it on the chin. And what we've seen is slowly over time, everything has revealed itself to support what he's been saying. And the conspiracy isn't behind Lou Elizondo, it's against him. And so now we're starting to realize that. And I think that the narrative could potentially change. This is a pretty big piece of evidence to come forward. To even the skeptics at this point would have to, see that there is definitely a movement against Lou and potentially his whole team, really. But Lou is the most vocal about this, and so this new revelation, I think, is just one of many that are going to be coming forward. Let's definitely reflect back to the interviews that Lou was graceful enough to present to us. Because a lot of the information I think that we may have disregarded initially, we should re-examine, because now we can definitely see that some of the things that were predicted in those interviews are coming to light and coming forward into truth. Over to you.
Well, I think that we are going to see a lot more truth like that coming out. I think that is something that we need to see where this goes. Look, we're only in round 1 of the fight. The Pentagon or Lou started it by coming out. The Pentagon fired back. They've traded some punches now, and now Lou is really starting coming out with the gloves off and saying, "Yeah, we got to go. We got to go." You know what I'm saying? And that's what I like about it. I love the feistiness. I love the anger. And but I could never imagine, my friend, what it's like to have my career erased, number 1, but number 2, he's also fighting for his pension. He's fighting for his medical, his dental, his 401k, or whatever it is down there. I don't know. But he's fighting for it. And that's all he can do.
To further some of the complaint that he put in writing, he answered the following question this way: what rule, regulation, or law do you believe has been violated? And he wrote, Whistleblower Protection Act, multiple DOD directives, instructions, and Freedom of Information Act. These are all huge infringements. And so these infractions definitely were detailed and reacted upon. I mean, we've seen what happened already. We don't know the exact repercussion because a lot of that is done behind closed doors, but we've seen a change, especially with Gary Reed, for example. So he continues here saying the abuse of government. I just lost the page. Darn it. Wow. Hang on. Here we go. I apologize. It just flipped. Abuse of government authority. And illegal destruction of information. This is key. And that's exactly what you were just saying. So in writing here, he is describing the illegal destruction of information that is in direct correlation to the loss of his emails. And so he's asking for an investigation into that here in writing. That's huge.
Well, it is huge. And if he wins this, what does that say about the U.S. government that they are willing to literally erase somebody off the face of the planet.
Yeah, it's a boys' club. It seems like it's a boys' club filled with elitists, doesn't it? That stick up for each other, look out for each other, and have their own set of rules. And if you step out of line, or if you're a wheel that squeaks too loud and you're squeaking the truth, perhaps, or something that's dissident to their program, then they're going to deal with you in one way or another. And if that means deleting you from the program and then erasing you from the history of the program, then that's a broken system. What we're seeing is obviously a broken system. And I think it was Eisenhower that was telling us to be careful of this kind of censorship. Very early on, we were seeing that this kind of program erasing and black budget within the government just isn't a healthy way to go. And it's just going to breed more malignant undermining of the truth. And so this is just the start. I mean, we are going to see heads roll. I think we really are naming names. This is now publicly bringing out the people that were targeted, as people that were falling out of line in the Pentagon. This is big news. It really is. And it doesn't speak highly for the people in power.
All right, let's get to the final topic tonight. You had a chance to check out the UFO Witness series, 2 episodes, 1 review. It's on the Travel Channel. What's your thoughts going on there?
Yeah, UFO Witness season 2 has come out, and they just released the first episode. And so I actually got to personally work on the Canadian version of this, and my family's case was on the Canadian version. So I'm always excited when the American version releases a new episode. And so Ben Hansen brings on Melissa Tittle this season, and the two of them go and interview UFO witnesses all over. The first series pretty much covered reinvestigating a lot of the cases that were not highlighted publicly as much in Blue Book, some of the old Blue Book cases. And so they were reinvestigating and taking a modern twist on analysis of some of the older Blue Book cases. And now this season is really focusing more again on modern witnesses and investigations. And so the first episode highlights shapeshifter UFOs and has Terry Lovelace as one of the witnesses on there. And Terry is chock full of great stories, and being ex-military himself tends to lend a very credible story when he describes some of the witness events. But shapeshifter UFOs, I mean, that's a really interesting topic, and one that I think, bears investigation from us all, because it seems like we're starting to see more and more cases of shape-shifting UFOs appearing, in the news and on the internet. And I think even recently there was one, I feel like it was over Denver. It looked like it was morphing and changing. Boy, there's so many now. But I can tell you, Dave, if you guys are into it, on Travel Channel, catch season 2, UFO Witness.
What makes this one a little bit different than what we're used to seeing? Never mind that your family is in one of these, but just in general, what makes it different?
Well, I think Ben Hansen brings a lot to it. He's somebody that actually investigates. He just doesn't take a witness account. He tries to investigate deeply the topic that the witness is bringing up. So, for example, he would revisit the site. He tries to recapture evidence. He reviews the evidence with the witness and tries to see if they can come up with a mundane explanation. And so what they also are doing is they'll take a location and see if they can redo it. And so, meaning, could they refilm the phenomenon at that location by some mundane way, or the phenomenon demonstrating itself in another way? So it's more boots on the ground investigation. I think UFO Witness is kind of one of those shows that brings witness accounts a little more to a reality for people, giving a little bit more in-depth descriptions, and you get to see the witness's reaction a lot more in this show. And like I said, Ben Hansen really does add a lot of credibility. So yeah.
You know what, though? Here's my thing, okay? Nothing against Ben Hansen.
Yeah.
I've met him. He's a nice guy. He really is a nice guy. But this is what? His 7th show of the same thing with a different title. Him and Josh Gates are having a race. It reminds me of the old AWA when every 2 weeks Dusty Rhodes would pin Ric Flair, and then 2 weeks later Ric Flair would pin Dusty Rhodes for the World Championship. I mean, that's what we're looking at here. It's Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes going back in the day and just pinfalling each other every couple of weeks.
Yeah, trying to outdo each other with evidence. Here's the thing. I want to watch that race. I mean, if these guys are stumbling to bring me the best evidence they can, I'm all in. And that's kind of what it is. I mean, Skinwalker Ranch, all these shows that are kind of touching on this topic. I'm excited to see what they bring. The same way I'm excited to see a new Triangle video, even if it's not 100% convincing. I want to see it because, even the fakes, I think, deserve research because you know what to look for. What we're doing right now is we're searching the skies and we're detailing what a bird looks like in every way so we can rule out birds. We need to be able to do that in this topic too. And so I feel like Eyewitness UFO is just another show that's doing that. We're trying to rule things out here. So the more eyes on it, the better.
But I mean, dude, it's the same thing with the paranormal shows. Same people, same locations, different television show title. I mean, how many times do we have to see the same people go to Waverly Hills and Gettysburg and Bobby McGee's and Alcatraz? Yeah. Every time I turn on a show, we're at Bobby McGee's, we're at Waverly Hills. It's the exact same show.
See, well, I feel you on this, except I've got to flip this because you're talking to someone that's relatively new to the topic. So I'm still excited over those shows. And I feel like perhaps those are for me and for my group. I'm not well educated on this topic, as you know. This is all very new to me. I'm still in the learning stage. And so these shows are entertaining to me. And like I can still watch this season's Ghost Adventures and get something out of it. Whereas somebody that's been watching it since season 1 may just be like, oh man, another EVP. Well, I'm like impressed by that. So I am definitely understanding where you're coming from with like a deep foundation and understanding this is old news to you. For a lot of us newbies out here, it's still really entertaining and new. So when I see UFO Witness, I'm like, wow, there's other witnesses out there like me that have similar stories. Like, that's why I get excited. That's why I did the show, because for me, it was just part of maybe getting it out there. Someone else saw something like me. I'm still very excited about the topic. So I definitely get why somebody that's looking for something new that has seen it all may be a little bit disappointed in these shows that are potentially appearing to rehash it. For me, it's all new and I still love it. And you know what? I also love the stuff on dogmen and Bigfoot and ghosts. I know nothing about it. I've never experienced it. So these shows that kind of scratch the surface lightly, I think do a service for people that are trying to get into it into a way that's real, because, these are all potentially real topics with real things that people are experiencing. So please bring on as many shows on this topic as possible. I'm the other side of the coin from you, Dave. I want more of these shows.
Oh, I want more. I want more. Tim, all I'm saying, dude, and I agree with you a lot with what you're saying, because every day there's a new viewer. Every day. Okay? But give me something new. Okay? I'm not saying I have an issue with Ben Hansen or Josh Gates or anybody like that. Just give me something new. Like your story or somebody else's story or a different location.
Oh, right.
You know,
I see what you're saying. They keep going to Waverly Hills. They keep going to Penthurst. I see what you're saying.
that's what I'm saying. We don't
It's
need
hard
to
to
have,
find places, right? And if you're trying to give your show cred, then you probably have to go somewhere that's well known, right? Potentially. I'm just guessing. But like, where would you go? Where would you send your team of investigators, Dave? Let's flip it for a sec. Like, do you know of, or do you don't want to give it away? Don't give it away.
no, I don't mind giving it away. I don't
All
mind
right.
at all. Jarhead, Manitoba, where
I've never heard of it.
where a UFO allegedly crashed. First Nations believe they saw a crash. Military went out there in the middle of 40 below zero weather, stating that they were doing military winter exercises on reserve land. Doesn't happen. Does not happen. They cordoned off the area. This is what I believe. They cordoned off the area. There were eyewitnesses to it. And some say they saw something big go out on a truck. That's the stories we have to dig for. Exactly. Mr. Tim, thank you so much for the UFO report. You can find the archives on our Spaced Out Radio channel here. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music, Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat room tonight, YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Before I say goodnight, very special happy birthday to my little boy who turns 9 today. Good night. All right, we're clear.
Fun show. Fun
Fighting
show.
my voice today.
You're what?
Fighting my voice.
Oh.
Fighting my voice.
Man, your locks are getting long.
You want some?
Some locks? Yeah, I'll take a few.
You want a beard too? I got some of those.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I could use a little beard. Mine's just rookie.
What kind of beard do you want? Do you want
I've
grizzled? Do you want old man? Do you want young, fashionable? Or do you want oob?
I think I want the split, like the dual beard. Like handlebars.
Very good call. Very good call. Let me see what I got for you. I do have some beards here.
Slap it on there. Logan Black says you own the night, but he rents the day.
Well, that works.
Love it.
That works. Do.
Did you guys already celebrate?
Pardon me?
Did you already celebrate your son's birthday?
No, it's tomorrow, but the show will air tomorrow, right?
Yeah, for sure. Do you know what you're going to do?
Don't know yet. I'm sleeping in tomorrow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sleep is great.
We've given him the day off of school.
Oh, beautiful.
And
Oh, still in school. My kids finished last week.
they finish next week. I think they
Cool.
go to the 29th or 30th.
Oh, that's brutal.
And I watched my boy today. He was practicing guitar. He was practicing Let It Burn. No, Hail the Apocalypse by Avatar. And that one has a whammy bar in it. So he was using the guitar tonight with a whammy bar. And then all of a sudden, as he's playing on the whammy bar, he's like, whoa, this sounds like Iron Man. So he just started playing Iron Man on guitar, figuring it out. I'm like, that's
awesome.
my boy.
That's great,
my
man.
boy.
He's
You
going to
know?
shred when he's an adult. He's just going to be unstoppable. That's great.
Dude, if he wants to try and make it, I'll do whatever I can to help him.
You're breeding a rock star. I love it.
Yeah.
It's
You
great,
know,
man.
I mean, yeah. Hey, he's young enough where if he loves it and that's what he wants to do, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. That's great.
You know, I mean, nobody says you can't you could be a rock star and get your education too. Look at Brian May from Queen. He's an astrophysicist. You know, look at, I always forget the guy's name, but the dude from, The Offspring, their lead singer. He's like a microbiologist scientist. You know, there's a bunch of musicians who have like bachelors and masters and doctorates. You know, I mean, you can do both. So,
Isn't
I mean,
Tom DeLonge really well pedigreed as well?
well, I don't know.
He's a rock star.
Hold on. Rock stars with
degrees.
All right. Yeah, the lead singer of Weezer, Rivers. Hold on. Rivers Cuomo. He's got his bachelor's degree in English. Tom Morello graduated from Harvard. You know, the guitarist for Rage Against the Machine. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in political science. Tom Schultz graduated Masters of Mechanical Engineering from MIT. You know, I mean, Art Garfunkel, master's degree in mathematics from Columbia.
It's funny that none of them have degrees in music. You'd think that they would have like gone to Tesh or something.
Punk rocker Greg Graffin is now a professional, or the lead singer of Bad Religion is a professor at UCLA.
Wow, that school is hard to get into.
Yeah.
Not even to teach. Can't even imagine.
I mean, Dexter Holland, that's his name, from The Offspring. Yeah, molecular biology. He went to USC.
Wow. I mean, it makes sense. Musicians are definitely sharp. You may not think it, but it takes it takes everything to be a musician. So
yeah, I think Bumblefoot. I think Bumblefoot has his degree in music or musical theory, one of the two.
When I lived in Hawaii, I worked on a dive boat, and the skipper of that boat told me a story about a time when Jerry Garcia had been on his boat. And this isn't about really intelligence or anything, but it was interesting. Jerry was a big diver. He was super into it. And the skipper was telling me that usually people use like 3/4 to 7/8 of a tank of air, typically on one of their dives. And in the same amount of time that everyone else was using that much air in their tank, Jerry would use like half the amount. He was just so zen underwater, and like he was an avid diver. And he was just saying that he never ever used as much air as the rest of the people that would be on that trip. I found that really interesting, that he was just on another level down there, probably in his element.
No kidding.
Yeah, I'm a major Grateful Dead fan, so I know a lot of little facts about that band.
The Clam went to 33 Grateful Dead shows between 91 and 95.
Wow. Oh yeah, I was rocking with them around that time too. Yep, 89 I started.
That's why the Clam has a touch of gray, and he
I like
will
that.
get by. He will get by.
I saw Brent Midland's last show in Ohio, and that's when it started getting hard to go to concerts after Brent passed
Donald
away.
Dean, how you doing? Well, Bruce Dickinson has a lot of degrees. He's also, to become a pilot, you can't be any dummy there either. Especially, when you have to go into 8 months of flight training just so you can fly a 747 on the Book of Souls tour around the world.
Yeah. Do you know that you can do a training course in Dallas right now for flight crew, being like, working actually out directing the air traffic, being an air traffic controller? There we go. You spend 6 months in Dallas, and the starting salary is like $100,000 in the US. It's like really in need of people.
High stress.
Doing air traffic. Oh yeah, but if you can, you only need a high school diploma. You don't have to have a degree in anything, and you could have a killer salary if you can deal with the stress. And who knows what you'll see on the radar working air traffic.
Well, look at that.
UAPs.
Would you look at that?
Would you look at that? I'll bet you would definitely see UAP in that job.
As Thomas Fessler would say, would you look at that?
I love it that he's doing that. That's from Ed Bassmaster. For anyone that likes YouTube, check out Ed Bassmaster. He is the man of a million faces and a million characters. He's absolutely hilarious.
Hard to believe. My boy was born at 8:46 in the morning. We started labor around now.
Oh wow.
She was induced on the Friday, and we had him at 8:46 a.m. on Sunday.
That's brutal. Did you know that there's something that's released in females at childbirth that helps them to forget about the trauma of childbirth?
Well, we ended up having an emergency C-section.
Because
he just did not want to come out. Yeah.
It was nice in there. There was no reason to move. He was being evicted against his will.
He got evicted. Got evicted. Yeah. And then I got to hold him first. We got to hold him for an hour and a half. Friggin' great in the recovery room.
That's amazing. I've had 5 of those experiences in childbirth, and each time it's just so terrifying.
Would you look at that? Would you look at that?
Speak of the devil, there he is.
Howie Mandel, would you look at that?
He's been busting my chops about that. Yeah, that's great. Thanks, T. What a guy.
You do look like Howie Mandel.
777. What does that mean? That's lucky. Take that to Vegas.
That's a good luck number, man.
It's a great luck number. Would you look at that?
Would you look at that? Would you look at that?
You gotta love him.
Thomas makes me laugh.
We had a fun show tonight. You guys should definitely all go rewatch that after this.
I apologize for not tuning in tonight, but it's such
Thanks
a rarity.
a lot.
It's such a rarity in my house, man. Like all three of my kids are here.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm just in a little bit of heaven right now.
That's great, bud. That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's going to be so much fun. So you guys are all together for his birthday. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Do you do usually like a home cooked meal, like his favorite?
He wants, and I probably shouldn't say this because I'm going to be harassed by the audience.
Uh-oh.
He wants mom's pancakes for dinner for his birthday.
That's fantastic. That's
well,
great.
no,
Does she make them homemade?
Oh yeah, but nobody should eat breakfast for dinner, right?
Oh, so, I disagree. We are a family that thrives on breakfast for dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Flip it. Dinner for breakfast. Lunch for a midnight snack. Be a rebel. I mean, cereal for dinner is great if you like cereal.
No, it's not a good dinner.
No. Dave's like, I need meat.
I need something dead on my plate. There's Triple Act. Would you look at that? There's Triple Act.
I see what's going on. They're team watching some sitcoms probably offline, and they're like, let's go harass Dave and Tim.
Would you look at that?
Would you look at that? Triple Act rocks.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, he says. I'm looking at it. Would you look at that? I'm looking at it. Well, just look at it.
Hey, Critter, how you doing, buddy?
Everyone has to go and see Ed Bassmaster, otherwise you're just not getting the joke.
Make mine a double. Welcome to SOR chat.
So,
see, look at Jonathan Davies has it right. Breakfast is breakfast. Exactly.
I get it. You Canadians stick together on this topic. I get it.
Well, that's part of the Commonwealth right there. And trust me, there's a lot of weirdo Canadians out there who like this breakfast for dinner bullshit.
Well, when do you eat ham? Is ham a breakfast or dinner item?
See, ham is universal, much like bacon. The entire pig is universal.
Pigs are universal. Okay. It's just no man's land. You can have it whenever you want it. It's an all-purpose animal. I get it.
Mm-hmm. Would you look at that?
So in your time slot, do you get a lot of people in other countries? Are there any specific other countries you get a lot of in this time slot?
Normally we will have Portugal or Canada, the US, the UK, Portugal, Austria, Czech Republic or Czechia, Australia, New Zealand. That's about it.
That's awesome. That's great. Oh, that's a great part of the world too.
Hey, Christoph.
Yeah, I love
What's
that.
happening, Christoph?
You have a great chat audience again tonight.
Yeah.
Jeff Greer's in England. Awesome. Grantavius in Wales. Oh, wait.
They're just naming the country. Jeff Gears in Arizona.
Gears in Arizona.
Oregon. New talk show channel coming. What's that about, Brazelhoff?
Oh, cool. I will go to your channel and subscribe, sir. Oh, I'm already subscribed. Cool.
My channel?
Brasselhoff.
Oh.
He's saying that he's got something coming. So cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Grantavius is from Oregon. Same here. I live in Salem. Beautiful Salem. Sarcasm. No, Salem's nice actually. I've lived all over. It's pretty sweet. Oregon in itself is pretty nice. It rains a lot, but it's also really mountainous and lots of Klamath. Oh, Klamath is awesome. Very cool. Yeah, lots of places to grow things here. Everything is green, very green in Oregon.
Hey, Christoph, get a hold of me on Facebook. We need to talk. Also, if there's anybody out there with web experience, with website experience, please get a hold of me. We need to add a web person to our team. And that could be you. It could be you. But you got to have web experience. Not social media, web experience. Tim, I'll be right back. I'm going to hit the bathroom here, okay?
Okay, bud. If you guys have any topics you'd like Dave to talk about, chuck it in capitals. There's 150 of you guys still, so please feel free. Jessica, are you in Klamath as well? No way. Same as Grantavius. Very cool, you guys. I love Oregon. It's one of my favorite places I've ever lived. I'll ask Black Dragon exactly what kind of web experience. You could always just email Dave directly. And if you need his email, I think it's actually in the show description. It is. So go ahead and just email Black Dragon and you guys can work it out. Very cool. Logan, please also get hold of Dave if you guys can lend a hand. Evan, you could put it in the chat for suggestions for guests. I could make a note of it and pass it on to Dave. I'd be happy to. Yeah, Eugene, Oregon is awesome. For sure. Applegate, Oregon in the house. What? Brown Dwarf from Applegate, Oregon? Everyone's from here. That's awesome. I had no idea we had a crew. Dry Toast lives near Roseburg? Wow. That's like 5 of us. Right now on Dave's show, they're all here in Oregon. That's crazy. What are the chances of that? Bumblebee tuna. Bumblebee tuna. Factory in Portland. Very cool, Jeff. Yeah, I was going to say I didn't know there was one, but that's cool. Is there even Bumblebee tuna anymore? Oh no, Raz, me too. I don't actually even know. I don't get involved, but I love them both. An Oregon get-together would be great. Shasta's amazing, yeah. I drive through there whenever I go visit my oldest son in California. Interesting question, Dizzy Me. Dizzy Me is asking, is there a known link between UFO sightings or abduction and electrical outages or electrical devices turning on and off? Oh, Dave would be good at this one. Well, I know that they're detecting EMF spikes and gamma spikes on Skinwalker Ranch whenever they see UAP. Well, not whenever, but in a couple of instances where they've seen UAP. So I guess potentially, Dizzy Me, there could be a connection there. Definitely. In abduction cases. You know what's interesting about abduction cases now? People that have Apple Watches that feel that they've been abducted are able to access the data on their Apple Watch to find elevation and heart rate statistics and things like that, and confirm their abductions with the evidence on their Apple Watch. Really cool. And there's actually like a movement to try and get that information public and to be able to, what do you call it? Collect. I don't know how to put it, but like collect the data for research. Very cool.
Ask Dave if he's ever toured both quads. No. I have.
You did have a. Sorry, go ahead.
I have torn both ACLs and MCLs in both knees. That's not fun.
So Black Dragon and Logan Black both have some experience, and so I directed them to contact you via in your show description. Do you have your contact for people that would like to help in the web?
Put my email in the just email me.
Perfect. There you go, guys. It's in the chat.
Yeah.
Very cool. Oh man, some good questions actually popped in here. Maybe you could answer this one a little bit better. Dizzy Me is asking, is there a known link between UFO sightings or abduction and electrical outages or electrical devices turning on and off? How about even in your experience? Have you had anything like that?
Never had the power thing happen. No. I'm not saying that I haven't heard about it, but you know,
I wonder if there's a connection there. I know that they always portray the lights flashing in films, like when there's an abduction going on. And even in what was it, Close Encounters, when it's the ship is over the house in Close Encounters, all of the kids' toys start turning on and the phone flies off the hook and there's electrical interference, the stove turns on.
There's only been a couple of times where I have been kind of freaked out. I remember one time I woke up when I woke up, my partner, she was still sleep. She wasn't feeling well and her back was killing her. So she slept on our couch that night in our recliner. And so that way she could kind of sleep in a sitting position. And I remember I woke up one night and I swore there was an alien in my house. Swore. And I have this night light that it dims when nothing is happening, but when you walk by it, it brightens up.
Yeah.
And I swore I saw something running down the hallway. I can't, to this day, I'm still confused by it, but I just had that absolute feeling.
Yeah, and sometimes our gut is right. And so you're saying that the night light brightened as if someone was walking by it? Yeah.
Then a couple of minutes later, my dog came down the hallway. This is what confuses me. Like, was it my dog or was it something else, right?
Right. I mean, anything is possible. I've never had a supernatural experience that I'm aware of, right? But my wife has, and she's definitely open to that. She actually had a doppelganger experience, which isn't quite, I mean, it's paranormal. It's not quite ghosts or whatever. Yeah, and I guess she didn't know what doppelgangers were, but I guess her sister explained that to her after. But she had, when she was a kid, walked into her shared room with her and her brother and sister. They all shared a room, and she saw herself standing next to her bed, and it freaked her out. And she ran out. And when her and her brother or sister, one of them, went back, it was gone. But yeah, she still talks about it to this day. That's crazy.
In my old house, this was when I was just getting into the alien thing before Spaced Out Radio. I had been asleep for maybe 5-10 minutes, and all of a sudden I just got that absolute fear that there was something in my house, and I knew where it was. I knew it was in down my hall in my kitchen, but just out of the sight of the hallway. And what convinced me on that was right across the hallway, your typical bedroom hallway. What is it? 4 feet. There was our laundry room, and that's where my dog slept. And when I got to the door and looked down the hall, my dog got up at the same time, peered his head out of the laundry room, looked at me, and then looked down the hallway. And it was weird because I was getting these, and I don't know how truthful this is, okay? So I don't know what kind of experience it was, but I kept on getting these telepathic messages. He's awake. He's awake. Get me out of here. He's awake. And so I started telepathically saying, come on over here. Let me see you. And he's awake. He's awake. Get me out of here. And I said, if I have to come down that hallway, I'm bringing my baseball bat, and I'm going to beat you till you're dead. Right? And it was get me out of here, get me out of here. And then all of a sudden, that entire thing just ended. Like the energy of it all just went completely calm. It's like fighting a fish. It's like fighting a fish, and then the fish spits the hook, and all of a sudden everything's calm again. Like that quick.
Interesting. And you mentioned energy there. I was wondering, Dave, do you think that, like, let's say a spirit is somewhere, and then a human sees the spirit? What if there's no human to see the spirit? Would the spirit still exist, or does it need the human energy to interact somehow for it to be on this realm? Or do you think that you could capture it without there being a person there, like, just setting a camera up somewhere? Or do you feel like the human is an important part of the experience for it to be there?
Same question is, if a tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear it, right?
Yeah, but on a more spiritual level, like, do they need our energy to manifest?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I really don't. Really don't.
Do you think they're using natural energy to manifest, or do they need energy, or do you think it's just like a spirit, like a displaced spirit, if you will? Do you have any thoughts?
I would say they feed off your energy. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. That would make sense, but they don't rely on it by any terms. You're in your thinking. Interesting.
No, I'm probably the wrong one to ask about that.
Okay. What about a Bigfoot? Could I ask you on that? Like, if you're not there to see the Bigfoot, does he still cross the road? You know, if there's no one there to witness, that's a tough one, right? Because a lot of people think that he could be multidimensional, and so it could just be performance art, like they only exist to be seen by us, maybe. I'm not sure on Bigfoot. I like it, though. I'm interested. I'm definitely open to it.
I don't know.
I think YJ may have nailed it. A spirit is just like you and me, just not wearing a meat suit like we are currently. That makes sense. I like that meat suit.
Meat suit.
Yeah.
Meat suit. Hey, Lowlands Pete, how you doing, man?
Cashew.
Six walk.
If a Bigfoot falls in the forest and no one else is there, does he make a noise?
Probably swears.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Well, it's that time of the night, my friend.
It is.
We're going to say goodnight. Thank you, Mr. Tim, for a wonderful night of broadcasting. We'll see you on Friday.
Indeed,
Tomorrow
sir.
on the show, Steve Shippey is here. And we're talking paranormal investigations to haunted museums. So we're dipping into the paranormal pool tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. Thank you, everyone who super chatted tonight. Smithy, Dennis, Laura, YJ, Amy, and Thomas. Would you look at that?
Would you look at that?
At that.
Just
and
look at it.
Thank you to all the veterans who tuned on in. We love you. You always have a safe home here, as does everybody else in our Spaced Out Radio chat room. And yeah, have a good night, everyone. Don't forget to shop at our store. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.
Let me get rid of that. And good night. Is it going to play?
healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.